70.3 race happening at a town called Rapperswil-Jona. From there, it's to Denmark. Denmark, there's another race. From Denmark, Austria. Austria, Sweden, Sweden, the United Kingdom, Switzerland again for Zurich, Switzerland to Maastricht.
Kijk eens hier, 30 Ironman triathlons op jaarbasis voor Paul Kay aan de mic, aan de microfoon.
Hamburg to Sweden, Sweden to Austria, Austria to Portugal, Portugal to the United States, the United States to Rotterdam for the WTS Grand Final, Rotterdam to Cervia in Italy, where they do the Novocoli, the bike race. So Cervia for a new Ironman there, Cervia, from there to Barcelona, Barcelona to Hawaii, and then after Hawaii, Idaho.
Hello and welcome. It's day 3 of the Hammer Series and it's the final push for glory in the Hammer Chase. A first across the line race for teams on time trial bikes that will decide who wins the very first running of this revolutionary new series. Well, Trek Segafredo won yesterday's Hammer Chase, while Team Sky have been the most consistent and will have the honour of leading off in Group 1 a little later on. Team Sunweb were to be leading off, but there was a change overnight. We'll talk about that drama in the discussions. The riders are making their final preparations. They've had a look at the course and now they're getting ready for the off and the final push. Well, it's a new and exciting concept. Let's remind ourselves now of how the Hammer Series works.
The Hammer Cycling Series. 3 disciplines: climb, sprint, chase. Team versus team. No individual ranking. Each team has 7 riders. 5 riders are picked to score team points for each discipline. All 3 disciplines are raced on short circuit loops with points to grab on the first 2 disciplines. The climb. A 7-kilometre circuit with challenging gradients. 11 laps, 11 chances to score points. For every lap, the first 10 riders to cross the finish line score team points. On lap 3, 7 and 11, it's double points. Each rider must make it into the last lap for his points to count. The team with the most points wins the climb discipline. The sprint. A 12.5 kilometre circuit. 8 laps, 8 chances to score points. Same rules as for the climb, but this time laps 2, 5 and 8 earn double points. The final discipline is the chase. A Fox and Hound team chase raced over 3 laps on a 14.5 kilometre circuit. The best ranked team after 2 days starts in first position. They are chased. All the other teams try to catch Team 1, starting the chase on short pre-calculated time gaps, depending on ranking and additional bonus seconds from the first 2 disciplines. The team whose 4th rider crosses the finish line first wins the Hammer Series.
Well, teams are making their final preparations and conducting their final warm-ups ahead of this unique 45 kilometres challenge. Teams have been split into two groups according to ranking after 2 days, with the squads in Group 2 gunning for stage glory. The Group 1 teams are racing for stage and overall honours. Well, the Group 2 squads are first up, with Trek Segafredo first into action shortly. It's been all action. Let's catch up with some of the riders and get their reaction to what's been an exciting couple of days.
On Friday, the Hammer Series kicked off with a bang. A race of blistering speed. 16 teams locking horns in a relentless battle for points. But flying highest was Team Movistar, led by climbing sensation Carlos Betancourt of Colombia.
And he's going to dance across this gap. The Colombian sensation Carlos Betancourt, as he has done throughout the day, is going to score maximum points.
Even higher speed was on the menu come Saturday. This time around, teams were showing off their sprinting skills on a flat and fast course. Riding on the razor's edge, it was all about keeping up the pace throughout the entire race.
And here comes Sepp Van Mark. He knows he has to start at first, and Canolo's just a bit used up. He hasn't got the legs for it. They've shared the sprints. It's Sepp Van Mark that's going to get the final sprint of the day. He's going to act like it's a victory.
But Team Trek Segafredo had the final say.
Time to waste some bubbly, and they've certainly earned it, haven't they? What a great performance throughout the afternoon from Trek Segafredo. So Movistar and Trek Segafredo have won stage honours, while Team Sky have established the all-important right to start first in Group 1. Riders and teams have been effusive in their praise for this fascinating new style of racing. And they're ready to coax weary limbs back into action after 2 short but intense days. That group will start later on with the first group into action. Well, they've got stage honours to gun for, as I say. Trek Segafredo will be first in, and they'll be chased at a remove of not much more than 39 seconds, if even that, by Quick-Step, BMC Racing Team, and the rest. Let's catch up with some of the riders to get their reaction. It's 2 very sore days of racing. They've enjoyed it. It's taken a lot out of them.
Team Trek Segafredo was dominating Hammer Sprint. A breathtaking high-speed race from the moment the starter's gun fired.
It was full on the race from start to finish, so we were all in front the whole time, so it was good to keep the view.
It took a little while for the real sprinters to strike, but on lap 5, Team Sky emerged victorious.
We need to take the double sprint for back in the race because we are really too far back. I move well in the middle of the group, and then I go 150 meters to go. It's a good distance for me, so I'm quite fast.
Sky's 3rd place in the climb and 4th position in the sprint secures pole position in the chase today, but their lead is a mere 32 seconds.
We just have to go as fast as we can. And what it makes it a little bit complicated is, like a normal team time trial, you try to do steady and don't start too fast. But the thing that can happen here, if you start like a little bit too slow, the team behind you catch you, and then you have to battle with this team.
Almost the same course, but different rules. Hammer Chase, a 45-kilometre team time trial.
There's also a little bit of tactic involved, I think, not like a normal TTT.
The team time trial, but where you've actually got like a carrot in front of you, or the fear of someone coming up behind you. It's going to be difficult not to go out the blocks like a greyhound and then fade. Yeah, it's mad.
Anything is possible, but one thing is certain. The first team across the finish line wins the Hammer Series.
Nervous riders ahead of the final push. It is the Hammer Chase. It's not a time trial as such. It's a hare and hound event, and who's going to be the squad that crosses the line first and gets the overall victory today. That's coming a little bit later. The first team to make their appearance very shortly will be Trek Segafredo. Alongside me once again is Robbie McEwen, and it's been all action so far in the first 2 days, Robbie.
Yeah, good afternoon, Declan. It has been all action. Quite often when you commentate a race, as you know, you sometimes need to pad and find some stories to talk about. Well, here we've been flat out having time just to stay on top of the race. There's so much going on, attacking, chasing, sprints every few minutes, and the feedback from the teams and the riders themselves has been fantastic. They really love it. The word of the weekend has been full gas, because that's what it is. It's high intensity, it's the maximum input from every single rider, and they're all exhausted after the end of these very short but hotly contested stages.
Yeah, in an odd way, it hasn't been terribly tactical, has it? It's just been, as you say, full gas, and they've had free rein to express themselves.
Well, before this series started, a lot of people were saying it's going to be very, very tactical, but it has in fact just been go as hard as you possibly can. And team selections have proved very important, and we've seen some of the teams highly favoured before the start of this racing on the weekend that have ended up in Group 2. They won't be racing for the overall victory of the Hammer Series, but they still can race for the win in Hammer Chase.
It's Trek Segafredo that will be first into action, 39 seconds ahead of the Quick Step Floors squad, and 55 seconds in arrears. Heading away will be a very strong squad of BMC Racing Team. Bahrain Merida, as you've seen there, 1 minute and 18 seconds they have to wait. So it is almost like a handicap race, isn't it? But it's the gaps have been established by their performances in the first two stages. So it's been pretty exciting stuff, pretty intense stuff, and it has really been truly exciting. So what have they got to face today? Fundamentally, again, one for the Flat Earth Society riders. No hills of any note.
Those points have
Here we are, we're at Sittard Helene, the Tom Dumoulin Cycle Park in Sports Zone Limburg. About to make our way. It's a total of 14.9 kilometers. The circuit just winds its way out of Sports Zone and then heads out into what's a fundamentally flat course, and fundamentally identical to yesterday's stage, with the addition of 2.5 extra kilometers that are bolted on just to give us the distance. The 3 laps make up a total of 45 kilometers of racing. It's a pretty long time for just 5 riders to be working in unison, absolutely flat out. And remember, they've got to bring 4 home to the line. It's the 4th rider over the line that counts. That's what they're facing. Not too much in the way of climbing. It's going to be pretty difficult. Well, the weather is pretty good at the moment. It's been a little bit thundery by times through the day. There is a little bit of wind out there, and I think that's going to play a factor. And certainly the team discussions and the instructions coming from the team directors, or the wind will have been played into that discussion. So let's go inside the team buses and have a little look at how they've been preparing. Be relaxed in BMC and Quick Step Floors.
The order: Manuel start, Miles, Stefan, Daniel, Tom. This is a good test. It's a race. We have the possibility to ride as a team for 50 minutes.
Well, that's interesting. And of course, the starting order and the starting positions of the riders.
10 minutes we go on the rollers. We start to heat up for the nice race we're going to do. It's raining, but it doesn't seem to be that hard. So let's stay in formation, go as fast as possible, and let's get for the best time. Good? Okay, guys. Good luck. Go.
Well, Team Quickstep are ready and waiting. They're going to be the second team into action. As I said, 39 seconds after Trek Segafredo head away from the start line. Team Quickstep will be into action, and they'll be quickly into the chase. Immediately after them will be Team BMC at a remove of 16 seconds, a further 23 seconds back to Bahrain Merida. Rumpot's UAE Team Emirates, Israel Cycling Academy and Caja Rural also involved in this first batch of racers going for positions 9 to 16, and also trying to win the stage, because stage honours, bragging rights there, UCI points, and not the unimportant matter of a little bit of prize money as well are on offer today for these teams.
Well, Declan, a lot of people had been asking, what's the point of these riders, of these teams racing for positions between 9 and 16? Well, there's pride on the line, for one thing. A team like BMC chose a lot of strong time trialists to come to this race. It's blown up on them a little bit because they lost Daniel Oss in the Hammer Sprint yesterday. Through the lack of points that the team got in the sprint, they didn't make the top 8. They're racing for 9 to 16, but they want to win the stage. We heard Marco Pinotti saying in the bus it's a good chance to do a time trial together. Rider team's time trial 45k. It's a nice distance for us, and they've got a point to prove that they are the strongest team's time trial team here. So they want to win that stage. Pride, I think that's the most important thing for them.
And an opportunity, as you say, to race in team time trial conditions, in racing conditions, is well, it's heaven sent, isn't it? Something they'll grab with both hands.
Well, it's something the specialist teams really appreciate getting the chance to do. And even though it's not your normal team's time trial, normally they'll be riding with at least 8 riders. In Grand Tours, even with 9. So 5 riders, that does change it somewhat. But a strong team like BMC with their lineup, real specialists. When you look at the big powerhouses like Oss, Kinziato, Kung, Bowley and Miles Scottson, I mean, pure time trials through and through. I expect them to make some catches. And within the first half of the race, I think as well, it'll be very hard to beat for the stage. But of course, we'll wait for the second group of 8 teams to sort out the winner of the whole Hammer Series.
It's hammer time, about to get underway. Under a thundery sky, will the heavens open? Will they be graced with good weather throughout? They're anxiously awaiting, and the riders from Trek Segafredo looking into the distance. Matthias Braindle, Greg Daniels in there, Ruben Guerrero, Jasper Stuyven and Boy van Poppel, the quintet in action for Trek Segafredo. 39 seconds after that, it will be Team Quickstep. This is a battle between these teams. We're going to see catches aplenty, because back through the order, well, as little as 16. We're underway, and it is the beginning of the Hammer Chase as Trek Segafredo leave the start line and immediately are replaced by Team Quickstep. They don't have much time to get themselves ready, do they? And the holder-uppers and the pushers are just anxiously trying to get into position.
Well, one of the holder-uppers, as we'll call them today, really had his work cut out. One of the Trek Segafredo riders really keen to get underway, just jumping the gun ever so slightly, but the rest of his team waited until the full countdown was done before taking off. The good news for these riders is that the weather radar says the rain has passed. It should stay dry for the rest of the afternoon. As Quickstep Floors 1 and go, the chase has started.
Well, we're up and running with Team Quickstep Floors. Gianluca Brambilla, Remy Cavagna, Dries de Wienens, and Yves Lampert and Max Schachmann are the quintet that are racing for Team Quickstep Floors. And this is going to be fast action, because it's not long, is it? Just a further 16 seconds before Team BMC are into action with Tom Bowley, Stefan Kung, Daniel Oss, Manuel Kinziato and Miles Scottson. Only another 23 seconds back to Bahrain Merida.
Really a steady start by BMC. See, Manuel Kinziato, super experienced, leading them out. Really not trying to sprint off the line like some of the other teams that we saw. But they can't afford to take it too easy, because Bahrain are already off the start line chasing BMC. But I'm sure BMC will quickly find their rhythm and wind things right up as Manuel Boaro leads away for the Bahrain team.
Yeah, they're on road bikes as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but barely have time to draw breath before Team Rumpot and Nederlandse Lotterij are into action. The Dutch squad, Jesper Asselman, Andre Loy, Elmar Reinders, Nick van der Leijken and Brian van Goldem are up and running.
And in the meantime, Team UAE has been set free. No pictures on the screen, but they just went past our commentary position. So you really don't get much time to wind into things. 2 more seconds, and the Israel Cycling Academy takes off from the line. They can already see UAE in their sights. Yeah, UAE took the first corner. as Israel Cycling Academy took off. Now Caja Rural on the line, the last of the 8 teams in this Group 1. 2 seconds to go. They're also away out on course.
5 riders. It's an all-Spanish lineup for the Caja Rural squad, the Pro-Continental team from Spain. And all 8 teams are into action in Group 1, the first part of the action. First half of racing. There you have it. Aramburu, Benito, Irisari in their lineup, as indeed Lastra and Zabala are, as we pick up the action a little bit further ahead. First team into action were indeed Trek Segafredo. There is their lineup. At the back here is Greg Daniel. Hang on to the wheel. How are they going to line up? Matthias Brendle is going to be asked to do a job here, I've no doubt about it. TT winner in the Tour of Britain, Tour of Belgium of late, the 27-year-old former world. Oh, look at that. Already Greg Daniel, and he wouldn't have anticipated that this would be an event that would suit him, but they've got to bring 4 riders to the line, so they're not going to want to lose one early on.
No, and that's really not looking good for Greg Daniel. He's very slightly built. He's more of a climber, so this really doesn't suit him. And he's got some big powerhouses in the team. And his cornering probably not quite up to scratch compared to his teammates, so he's really going to struggle. Because there are a couple of tricky corners out on this course. I rode the course this morning. I did 3 laps. And there are a couple of corners that could catch them out. So hopefully they've got their recon right as we see some telemetry coming out from the riders from Trek Segafredo, and this is from Matthias Brendle. So you see the heart rate, the cadence, the power output, and we'll be bringing you all those numbers throughout the stage.
Jasper Stuyven on the front at the moment. What a great job he did yesterday. Scored great points for Trek Segafredo, took stage honours, but it wasn't enough to propel them into the second group off and into that race for overall success. Just shows you've got to bring an all-round team. They've brought Greg Daniel, who's good on the hills, but not enjoying this at the moment. They'll settle in, though. No doubt Greg Daniel will find the tempo, find the rhythm, which, as we've seen already from the great Velon data, is telling us that they're going at 48 kilometers per hour. We hope to pick up some more of the data as they get through the day. Remember, 39 seconds further back at the start were Quick Step Floors, hoping to have some intermediate sector times along the way to give you an indication of the gaps between them. A mere 353 watts being churned out at the moment, secure in the knowledge he can do that for another 45 kilometers. 49 kilometers an hour for Matthias Brendle, and he's getting up around 100 RPM. He can rev, and he can rev a very, very big gear.
Well, Declan, 49 kilometres an hour, and I tell you what, that makes it even more impressive, the fact that they are riding into a head crosswind on this section of the course. So the wind is up compared to yesterday. The wind is probably blowing 15 to 20 kilometres an hour stronger than it was yesterday. A little bit more protected on this side, but as they get the other side of the course, it becomes more open, and even crosswind will start to play a role and stagger the teams across the road. So it'll be the most disciplined and smooth team that can make the most of these conditions.
Well, Robbie, you rode the course today, so you know exactly what the conditions are. In terms of road surface, it's pretty smooth, flat, quite a pleasant experience, I would have thought, from that point of view.
It's quite nice roads, particularly this first section, very smooth and even. But as they take that sharp right-hand turn where we saw Insari go down yesterday, the road surface gets a little bit rougher. It's a little bit more country roads. And when they do the extra loop that's been put in, and it's around the 10 kilometre mark is the middle of that extra loop, those roads are just a little bumpier. And there's one particular corner, a right-hander. If anyone goes in too hot and gets a bit too wide, they're going to be straight into a mud puddle, and we won't be seeing them back again.
Well, we keep an eye out for that. We won't wish it on them, that's for sure. 34 seconds now, so they've gained 5 seconds off the start line. Going well for Team Quickstep at the moment. In turn, BMC are closing up on both Quickstep and Trek Segafredo. So the intermediate gaps we're getting at the moment looking good for Team BMC. This one is condensing nicely, and it's looking like a pretty good scrap out there.
Already coming together. If you look in the distance of our picture, Team Quickstep Floors, they can see the vehicles in front of them right behind Trek Segafredo, and this is the view that BMC have. They can see Quickstep right in front of them, and if they look past, they can even see Trek Segafredo. So they've really got their sights set. A nice, steady, slowish start from Team BMC, but you can see now I'm making a comparison of just looking at the teams. BMC already look a lot faster than the others on the road.
Well, you had picked them out before the start. We were chatting before the start of the broadcast, Robbie, and you had picked out BMC as the real team to watch. And already they're closing down on Quick-Step. Quick-Step, in turn, are 6 seconds. So they've eaten into the advantage of Trek Segafredo. So BMC are charging along at an impressive rate at the moment. They were 16 seconds behind Quick-Step starting, and they're already almost in single figures. Going to catch them quickly.
And you can see there just a couple of rain spots on the camera, so a little bit of drizzle down at the far end of the course still, and you can see the road just looking a little bit wet, so that could make some of those corners a little bit treacherous. So teams will have to keep that in mind, be a little bit careful till they get their bearings on this course and figure out how hard they can hit those corners. This is Bahrain Merida. Manuele Boaro, Bonifacio, Garcia Cortina, Insausti and David Per.
That's the 5 riders. It's been a tough moment for them, really, because unfortunately, in the approach to this event a couple of days ago, they had their time trial bike stolen. So unfortunately, they were robbed from the van, stolen from the van outside the hotel. Difficult moment, and they've been forced to ride their road bikes. What's that going to cost them?
Yeah, that's going to cost them a lot of time for one thing, but also mentally knowing that you're not on the fastest bike possible. It already will be playing on the minds of those Bahrain Merida riders, and we see Team Rompot already passing the Bahrain Merida car and already catching them. So that is the difference between riding a road bike and a time trial bike. Even if you've got the aero bars, it's the whole package that makes the difference. And here is our first catch of the Hammer Chase, and the gentleman's agreement for passing was once the first rider of Team B, called that Rompot, catches the back of the other team, they should cede and let the other team go past, but it was just a bit too close to the corner to make that happen.
A bit too close, and Rompot went to the outside, which is probably discretion being the better part of valour there. We see the road surface glistening a little bit. I think there have been 1 or 2 little minor showers out on the course in recent times. I can tell you it's substantially dry here at the finish line, but the roads and the skies are thundery.
And this is where you see the difference in the road surface, just a little bit more coarse, those little pebbles, so look how carefully they're going around that corner. Team BMC, number 13 at the back, Daniel Oss, already crashed yesterday. And I think that was the cause of Team BMC not making the top 8 teams to ride off in search of the win of the Hammer Series overall. Oss crashed in the same crash as Caleb Ewan and Ramon Sinkeldam. No more points through him. He was their best sprinter. He was the man destined to get the points for them, launch them into that top 8. They've now fallen into the second 8. Can't win the overall, but they can still win the stage, and that's what they're out and gunning for.
We should mention that Ramon Sinkeldam, of course, crashed in yesterday's Hammer Chase or Hammer Sprint, and as a result of that, didn't get to finish. Because he didn't finish, his points were taken away. So Team Sunweb, initially it was suggested that they would be the top team. They'd be starting first in Group 2 later on. Well, actually, they'll be starting behind Team Sky, and I think that's going to make it, in many ways, perhaps a more interesting race.
And you know what? I think it's in their advantage to start behind Team Sky. Now, Team Sky is a team that's very well known for its team time trialling skills. But this is a different kettle of fish. They've got climbers, they've got sprinters here. It's not their typical team's time trial team they would choose for, say, a world championship. As we look at some of the data there from Stefan Kung, 460 watts he's pushing out. It's massive.
Going up to 530 there for a little while as well. I mean, it's big numbers, isn't it?
Well, here's our next catch.
Well, there you have it, and they've already made the catch on the second team on the road. So Quick-Step floors are being caught by Team BMC Racing Team, and they're not exactly all together through that left-hander. Some riders just finding it, and of course it's extra technical, isn't it, on a time trial bike, these corners.
I think that was Schachmann from Team Quick-Step Floors, really wasn't able to follow the first rider through the corner, and this is where they pick up that crosswind. It's tail crosswind, a very fast section. It's getting pretty tight there too, because Quick-Step hadn't moved all the way to the left. BMC sliding through on the right-hand side. Look at that speed differential as Stefan Kung slides off the front, lets Daniel Oss come through. Now, it's team's time trial rules. Quick-Step are not allowed to just get in the wheel. They will pace off them, but they have to make sure they sit at a certain distance, not just back behind them, but also off to the side. They need to offset themselves a little bit so they don't get into strife from our race referees who you see keeping a close eye behind.
So you have got 5 riders in unison, but they have to understand that there are no drafting. There is no drafting. And the way you want to describe it, it's not possible for them to ride along in the slipstream. Having said that, they've dropped a little bit further behind BMC, but probably need to go a few more bike lengths back before the the UCI commissars will be satisfied with that. Here's the other catch we saw a little bit earlier. Team Rompot have moved ahead of Bahrain Merida. Bahrain Merida are on the road bikes, and well, some of them have got time trial bars they've added on, but the crosswind is a factor here.
Yeah, you can see that breeze. You see how they're staggered across the road, and Bahrain Merida a lot more than Team Rompot, where that has to do with the lack of time trial bikes and just makes them feel it even more. But Rompot looking pretty slick, nicely controlled and really smooth.
Here comes Team Sky. Quick Step are coming back, I should say, and they haven't quite entirely accepted their fate, and it's a tricky one, that, isn't it? How do you make that judgment? They're clearly able to follow in the wake of Team BMC. They've set that tempo in front of them, and they're able to handle that. But well, it's going to be watched and monitored, I think, closely by the commissars for a little while.
Yeah, I'd say that gap definitely allows them to take advantage of some slipstream from Team BMC. They're not sitting right in the wheel, but they're not far off it, and they're still just gaining that little bit. Here's Team Trek Segafredo still in front, but Team BMC will now be setting their sights on them. 1 minute and 28 seconds. Still a significant gap, but we are only 10 kilometres into this hammer chase. I'm not sure that 1:28 is right. Just having ridden the course this morning and knowing where they are, I would say that BMC are a little bit closer than that. So let's keep an eye on that, and we'll try and do some time checks as they come through the start-finish line to go out onto their second lap. I think the gap might be a little bit less than that.
A little bit less, yeah, if they've got Quick Step, and Quick Step were, as we understood, making inroads into Trek Segafredo's time. Still, it looks as if they're very much racing as a unit long-term. Coming here from Jasper Stuyven once more on the back of the group. It's Matthias Brendle. Brendle, well, it's a big appointment for him. He'll be expected to do a little bit more of the work, spend more time on the front, and exactly how the teams... That's likely to be something that happens at the back end, of course. Early on, the turns need to be smooth. They need to make sure that they keep all their riders together. Brendle out of the saddle, and he's sitting on the wheel of Greg Daniel, so not getting much in the way of shelter there, but Brendle is such a strong unit. Look at that, 514 watts, 44 kilometers an hour, and getting into triple figures on the RPM, despite the size of gear. He follows Greg Daniel up the line. So not... and the way that they set up their team lineups will dictate to a certain... It will be dictated by the power that the riders are able to generate and just how strong they are.
Well, sometimes it's a very difficult thing when you have a guy like Matthias Brendle, a very strong time trialist, and you mix up the team with a guy like Gregory Daniel, not so great at time trials, not so great at teams time trials. It's better to have a really even team, guys who are evenly matched, and that's what we see with BMC, and that's why, for me, they are the favourites today to ride the fastest time overall. Nearly pure time trialists, every single one of them, and a very well-drilled team. And now Quick Step Floors, that gap opening somewhat now, so BMC starting to ride away. At first they were able to ride off that tempo and follow, but they're getting a little bit ragged now. Team Quick Step Floors, and BMC, I would imagine, will really start to motor away from them, start to cross that gap to Trek Segafredo.
I can tell you it's pouring with rain here at the finish line, so that's going to be an added conundrum and an added difficulty for the riders. The surface here at the Sports Zone Limburg on the bike park track, the Tom Dumoulin bike park track, to give it its full title, renamed in honour of the Giro d'Italia winner just a few days ago. That surface is extremely grippy, but out on the roads, well, the surface is a little bit more shiny, and less grip is out there, so these riders will have to factor that in. And as I say, on the technical roads with the time trial bikes, on the skis, no brakes of course when they're on the aerodynamic extensions, tri-bars as once they were called. There you have a little bit of a visual representation between Trek Segafredo and BMC as they race down into these junctions and through that little piff-paff. So now we're hearing that BMC are now, and this is a clarification of what we've seen. BMC are, well, we were just hearing that the time gap between Trek Segafredo and Team BMC was narrowing considerably, and we're just not sure we can confirm what that number is, but it would certainly gel with what we've seen so far with BMC on a real charge, already past Team Quickstep and into second position of the squads through 9 through 16. So there is an intermediate sector when we'll get a clearer idea of exactly the gaps between them. That's what they're showing at the moment. Well, at the 7.5 kilometre point, BMC were yet to pass Quick Step Floors. That's been done now. Trek Segafredo still in front, but their gap is narrowing.
Yeah, Declan, that time check only half a lap into the race, and already, well, Trek Segafredo are just about to line up to come through the finish for the first time. So those time gaps changing quickly and significantly. That's Team BMC just heading into that hairpin corner, the entrance, if you like, to the Tom Dumoulin Bike Park here in Sittard-Geleen, the Sports Zone Limburg. Quick Step now gingerly through that corner. Now, OK, my career as a weatherman is in great jeopardy. I said it shouldn't rain anymore. Well, I just went back to the radar. This has now popped up on it. The good news is it should only last about 10 minutes. Hopefully the roads will dry up quickly again for these riders. BMC are out looking to try and win this stage, to win the Hammer Chase on time.
Well,
this could really affect it.
Just as we see it, and there's going to be a change very shortly, because through one lap, and it is Trek Segafredo that are still in front, but they're going to be caught, and they're going to be caught relatively quickly now by Team BMC as they flash through the line. It is Trek Segafredo, complete lap one, in the lead of this first part of the Hammer Chase, but BMC are the squad that are on a charge, and they're carrying Quick Step along in their coattails, because the Quick Step squad haven't given this one up. They haven't accepted their fate. They still believe that they can challenge, and very closely we're going to have three teams together on the road, and on slick wet roads at that.
Well, the gap between Trek Segafredo and BMC was 11 seconds at the finish line that time, with Quick Step Floors just a second behind. See BMC very carefully around the corners, and Quick Step managing to get back into the wheel. Now there's nowhere for them really to go to stay out of the slipstream on this circuit. It's really quite technical for the next 1.5 kilometres until they get back out onto the open road. But Team BMC see them back into position down on the bars, starting to cross that gap again. So that Quick Step rode up into the wheel. BMC's general pace and power is pulling them away from them again, and they're steadily closing the gap to Trek Segafredo. Just over a lap into this 3-lap team's time trial, the Hammer Chase.
So just over 15 kilometres gone, just under 30k to go, and it is the first three teams almost in the same camera shot at the moment as we switch back to, well, it's a solid job being done by Bahrain Merida. The tempo is being set in front of them by the Team Rompot squad, who come flash through in fourth position, 1 minute and 23 seconds back. They've managed to close 10 seconds on Trek Segafredo, so it's a great ride so far by Team Rompot. They're actually closing in on the leading three teams. For all that, though, BMC have put time into them, and I think BMC are going to pass Trek Segafredo very, very shortly. And then, in short order, Team Quick Step Floors are going to follow them through. Let's give you a quick update of what this situation is. We've got Trek Segafredo that are coming through. Remember, they started 39 seconds in front of Quick Step Floors. Quick Step have been passed by Team BMC, who are fully 55 seconds, almost a minute behind. They've closed pretty much a minute in, what, about 15, 16 kilometres? It's an impressive effort.
It's a massive effort by Team BMC. Trek Segafredo hanging on by the skin of their teeth at the moment. We're still with 2 laps to go as the Israel Cycling Academy now come through the finish line a couple of minutes down. Still no sign of Caja Rural coming through. But our top 3 teams out of this group, Trek Segafredo, Team BMC and Quick Step Floors, where you really could throw a blanket over them. Maybe better to throw a poncho over them at the moment with the weather conditions. And this will really affect Team BMC's chances of winning the Hammer Chase on time. They can't win the overall, they're not in the top 8 teams. But these wet conditions really slowing down their time around this course. So although the favourites to win it, the weather could play a big role, slowing them down and allowing teams out of the top 8 to have a better chance of winning the Hammer Chase.
Fastest time of the individual teams throughout the afternoon will be calculated, and that the overall destination, or at least the destination of stage honours in the Hammer Chase, will go to the team with the fastest time. But the overall honours in the Hammer Series, inaugural Hammer Series, well, that goes to the winners of the second part of this competition. Group 2 later on, with Team Sky set to lead off. Meanwhile, Caja Rural, chastening experience for them. They've really been beaten up a little bit throughout South Limburg. Here we have the pass as Team BMC go ahead of Trek Segafredo, and there's absolutely nothing that Trek Segafredo can do about it. They work their way across the road just to get something out of it, but they're going to have to step back off the gas a little while and just accept and understand. Now Quick-Step have a conundrum because they've caught Trek Segafredo, and they've been sort of they've been able to cover the pace that Team BMC have been going at, but now they need to get ahead of Trek Segafredo, need to do it pretty quickly.
Well, this is where this chase could get very, very interesting. You look at Quick-Step running into the slipstream of Trek Segafredo. Quick-Step then pull out to the left side of the road to also make the pass of Trek Segafredo, but now we have three teams even closer together, and at the end of this stretch of road, they've got that tight right-hand turn. They're absolutely bunched at the moment. And BMC, I would imagine, not too happy about this, with the other teams effectively just riding their slipstream. So they need to get themselves apart because time trial rules apply.
Well, normally in a stage race, of course, they'll start 2-3 minutes apart. So the catches don't happen on any regular basis. It's very unusual to see three teams in line astern. And, well, that's a considerable train, isn't it, of 15 of the strongest riders in World Tour racing. And Team Quick-Step have made the pass and now need to try and throttle back a little bit, or else go past BMC and try and go for it.
Well, it can be very tempting for the teams when the riders are suffering like they are, just to get that little bit of slipstream, but they all would realise what they are and are not supposed to do, and I'm sure they're getting reminders over the radio. And if they continue to ride too close to each other for too long, I'm sure the commissaires will get in between the teams and make them separate themselves somewhat to keep their distances and make racing fair. But I'm just starting to see BMC now edging away, but Quick-Step just trying to just get on their coattails just enough.
And Matthias Brendel is on the front of the Trek Segafredo train at the moment. Greg Daniel is swinging around at the back. He's hanging on manfully at the moment, but Matthias Brendel not willing to accept this situation. He's got the power to be able to race in the wake of Team Quick-Step, but I think, well, there could be some discussion. To be honest, it's easier when the catches are made in individual time trials. It's easier to manage that situation. When you've got teammates around you, the instinct is to go, as fast as you need to go in order to maintain a position. 500 watts for Remy Cavagna. It's pretty impressive.
And 47 kilometres an hour, so slightly slower than the last lap along here where we saw BMC riding at 49. Well, there you go. Now it's gone up to 54, so maybe a little bit hit and miss with the speed data coming through. And Cavagna maybe just freewheeling a little bit for a moment there with the watts dropping down. Team BMC asserting themselves but not able to snap the elastic back to Team Quick-Step. And this is again Bahrain Merida and some displeasure.
Well, they're on the road bikes, and what a great job they're doing, because they're keeping Team Rompot, who've caught and passed them. Do you remember, Team Rompot were just 15 seconds behind them when they started. Rompot had that carrot in front of them, managed to get to Bahrain Merida, but they're not giving up, are they? They're not losing heart for the fact that they've been forced to use their road bikes. For all that, they do have the aerodynamic extensions, the tri-bars, so and so many of the road bikes that they're using these days are quite aerodynamic. Aero road bikes, it's a big buzz phrase now, isn't it? It's a very important part of the equipment development that has gone on in world cycling in recent times. Let's have a look at this.
And that is the commissaire, Martin Brown, and it looks like he's coming up to tell Team Bahrain Merida. You might see some sign language here. Keep your distance. Thumbs up. That's a pretty good distance, but don't go and ride any closer than this. Straight in line with them. And I think a good way to handle this would say, well, if there's a team in front of you in one lane, you must go in the other lane.
Yeah, I think it's a good call, Robbie. I mean, that's very much the way it's understood in time trials throughout the world, that you need to drop back and also change your line. So there can be no argument about it. At the back of the lineup here is Jon Inchausti, Spanish rider. He's a pretty strong time trialist on his day. And they're rotating in very smooth turns at the moment. Team BMC, well, they've got some big units, haven't they? Tom Bowley, Stefan Kung, who's been a real superstar for the squad over the last couple of days. Daniel Oss, as you've mentioned. Manuel Quinziado, of course, third in the time trial at the Giro d'Italia that concluded last Sunday. And he's heading towards retirement, but he's showing no signs of a lack of motivation. Well, there's Team BMC at the front now, and the Rompot squad a little bit further back on the road. They've yet to make that right turn.
Well, looks to me, Declan, like BMC are just starting to edge away now. That gap to Quick-Step floors getting a little bit bigger, so no longer really able to take advantage of that slipstream. But what is a big advantage is if you have a team like BMC just in front of you, you can ride that tempo as long as the legs will let you, but it's that little extra. You don't have to push yourself to go that speed. You just follow the speed of the team. It is an assistance without being an actual slipstreaming assistance.
It's a psychological carrot. Yeah. Filippo Ganna, 5th in the time trial in the Tour of California. The young Italian, just 20 years of age, through the track program from Italy, and he is a very strong rider. Big engine to put on the front. On the back here at the moment, 115, that's Oliviero Troia, the Italian rider, 22 years of age. And the UAE's Marco Kumps, good sprinter on his day. 53 kilometers an hour at the moment, and that heart rate is not going to be a whole lot shy of his maximum. Settle into a tempo, Team UAE. They started 6th of the 8 teams in action in this first group. 1:45 behind Trek Segafredo off the start line. 13 seconds behind Team Rompot, but not making any great inroads into the effort of the Dutch squad, because Bahrain Merida not inside at the moment either. So Team UAE, will they come under the threat of the Israel Cycling Academy that started behind them by 15 seconds? So now we've still got this 1-2 situation. It's BMC and Team Quickstep. Quickstep back into second on the road. He started second, passed by BMC, and now in turn both those squads have passed Trek Segafredo. So Trek Segafredo from first into third, Quickstep back into second, and BMC have leapfrogged the two of them into first place on the road. And Team Quickstep look like they could be able to challenge, and look at the way that Trek Segafredo in turn have also stayed in touch, and this is a three-way fight for the win.
Well, I think it's that psychological benefit we talked about, but at a certain moment, the legs, the feeling in the legs, that takes over from that psychological advantage. Quickstep no longer able to match BMC. Now we're seeing that phenomenon of Trek Segafredo able to do what Quickstep Floors were doing to BMC, stay close, but see how long they can keep this up and stay in touch. Still getting that little benefit of slipstream, I'd think, behind Quickstep Floors. They will both be seeing Team BMC ride off into the distance as they swing hard right into that narrow little farm road. And this is what I said earlier, you don't want to get too wide out of this corner. You end up in the big mud puddle.
Well, they managed to all stay upright there, and Trek Segafredo closed up into the corner, the concertina effect being to their benefit. So we get the current standings. BMC with that 4-second advantage, just a couple of seconds behind Trek Segafredo. They're trading blows, aren't they, for second position on the road. And Team Rompot, well, they're a little bit further back, but it's a solid effort, and they're doing a pretty impressive, just trying to work it out. But they started 1:33 behind Trek Segafredo, and they've only lost 5 or 6 seconds. The Pro Continental outfit from the Netherlands are holding their own, and it's a brave response from a team that wouldn't be expected to challenge the big World Tour squads in a team time trial fight. Doing a good job up front, but doing the best job of all is Team BMC. Tom Bowley, Stefan Kung, Daniel Oss, Manuel Kinziada, and Miles Scottson of Australia are absolutely flying, and as you say, putting a little bit more daylight into Team Quickstep behind. So BMC starting to assert their authority on this second of 3 15-kilometer laps. Now it's another little crosswind section where the any sort of aerodynamic benefit they might get from trailing in the wake will be a little bit lessened.
Yeah, this was one of the hardest sections on the course. Really head crosswind and a very open section blowing right across the fields. So for my money, this was the hardest section of the course, and this is where you start to see the gaps really open up again. No benefit of that little bit of slipstream. We see on the map where the teams BMC, Quickstep Floors and Trek Segafredo are sitting in relation to the teams behind. Team Rompot NL in the background there.
Yeah, Bahrain Merida. So it's first 3 on the road, and they've got a couple of corners advantage, and about a kilometre between these 3 squads and the next 2 behind. Bahrain Merida trading blows with Team Rompot. There's the first 3 teams in action. Team BMC. And it's like a Dutch road race, isn't it? It's echelon after echelon.
All split to pieces here. We get a picture of Israel Cycling Academy led by the Australian Zach Dempster, putting in a good ride along with Mikkel Reim, Guy Sagiv, Dennis van Winden, the Dutchman, and Tyler Williams. struggling a little bit against the World Tour teams. What a fantastic experience, though, for these riders as a Pro Continental outfit to come and take on the World Tour teams in the Hammer Series. And I'm sure they've gained an enormous amount of experience. And what they've also been gaining is an enormous amount of lactic acid. You can see by Mikael Reim, 164 beats a minute, 408 watts at 50 kilometres an hour. We'll just try and see where Michael Reim is in that lineup. I think he's about midway, so those heart rates, as we see one of the Quick Step riders already shot out of the back, and that's Brambilla. We saw him not enjoy this circuit too much yesterday. He crashed in the Hammer Sprint early on.
So they don't have much wiggle room here, do they? It's we'll very often see in a team time trial they'll start with 8 or maybe 9 riders, and then it's the 5th rider over the line. This is a little bit tighter. It's starting 5, and your 4th rider over the line is the one that counts. You've got to get 4 to the line. So Quick Step, that is a big blow. That is a big blow. Just under 2 laps into this race, with still 16 kilometres to go to be down to 4 riders, and know all of those guys have to finish. And I'm sure they're now going to see BMC ride further into the distance a lot quicker than they'd planned for. And now Trek Segafredo have a real chance of passing Quick Step back again, because they're still here with 5 riders. Although Greg Daniel at the back, he's looked a little bit shaky early on, but maybe that could prove to be the difference to passing Quick Step back again. Well, if he's able to take a rest and then make contributions at the back end when some of the other riders have really put out the big watts for a long time and they're starting to tire a little bit, it could well be that Greg Daniel can make the contribution. And that, as you say, could make the difference, because they're still running with 5 and they're chasing Team Quick Step. These are the 2nd and 3rd teams in line. It's the scrap, remember, to decide the positions 9 to 16 in this Hammer Series, and also to try to see can they win today's Hammer Chase stage. Well, Declan, you talk about marginal gains. A rider extra is a bit better than a marginal gain. Having 20% more riders than the team you're chasing down is a really big advantage. But they are the 4 best from Quick Step left there. Brambilla probably wasn't expected to be one of the strongmen in the team's time trial, more a pure climber. Well, they got Brendel on the front again, and he has spent immense amounts of time on the front here. Has a little look over his shoulder to see if his buddies have come with him. I'll tell you what, he is a very, very strong beast, isn't he? Well, I'm sure Brendel is smelling blood in the water, seeing Brambilla swing off and just 4 Quick Steps in front of him. As we now look at the Caja Rural team. There's a few of them probably tasting blood in their mouths, the effort that he's putting in. Caja Rural, the final squad in the line at the moment. They started 15 seconds behind Israel Cycling Academy. Too sure whether that has prevailed. We're coming up to the conclusion of lap 2. We're going to get that very shortly. We're going to see BMC flashing across the line a little bit further out the road. They started 2 minutes and 15 seconds in arrears, and 15 seconds behind Israel Cycling Academy. Israel Cycling Academy in turn were chasing the UAE Team Emirates. A great scrap with Team Rompot having moved up into 4th position ahead of Bahrain Team Bahrain Merida, but Bahrain Merida hadn't given up entirely. There's Miguel Benito as we pick up the squads into the home straight, heading for the finish line. A little bit of daylight now between BMC and the Quick Step Floor squad and Trek Segafredo, and very particularly Matthias Brendle. And look at what a big unit he is and the big effort that he can make. Jasper Stuyven in there is making big contributions too. And Brendle said after yesterday's stage that it was all about the time trial riders trying to make big, long sprints. Let's see what the gap is between BMC and Team Quick Step, and it's definitely extended, no doubt about that. Out onto the final lap of 3, 11 seconds in arrears, so it's not done. If anything goes wrong at all for Team BMC, we could have a change. Trek Segafredo, 15 seconds back, and that's just 4 seconds behind the Quick Step Floor squad. Jasper Stuyven goes to the front, and a little bit of organisation between those riders. Loads of grip on this technical section in the Tom Dumoulin cycle park. Well, Declan, the good news is the roads are starting to dry up, but you can still see quite damp around this circuit, so it's too little too late in terms of drying up for Team BMC. And what we saw in the last lap was that Quick Step managed to pull back a few seconds on this little piece of circuit on BMC, just a bit more aggressive through the corners, a bit more confident on those time trial bikes in these damp conditions. So they're not out of it yet. BMC have been edging away from them so slightly, and Quick Step just down to 4. You wouldn't back them to come back on BMC, but
this race has proved to us that nothing is ever locked in until the race is finished, because we've seen so many changes over the last couple of days.
It's a fascinating new concept, isn't it? It's a really interesting way that these riders are getting to race on their time trial bikes. Quick explanation: we've got two groups racing today, because I know some of you are on social media are asking the question. This is the first group into action, and they are battling to decide positions 9 to 16 in the Hammer Series overall. They do have the additional carrot of the opportunity to go for stage honours today. So the fastest team of all today will win this particular stage, but these teams cannot win overall. It's only the teams that are coming up a little bit later on. They're on their rollers behind me in the bike park, getting set to push on. Those will be led off by Team Sky a little bit later on in the programme. Meanwhile, we move on with this Group 1 riders, and it is Team Rompot currently in 4th position in this Group 1 race. And there you have great slow-mo of BMC, Quick-Step and Trek Segafredo, our first 3 teams in line. Out onto the final tour, the Bahrain Merida squad staying in touch with Rompot, but starting to lose a little bit of time now. So they've slipped 17 seconds behind Team Rompot. Rompot in turn starting to lose out a little bit as well, and they've slipped almost 2 minutes behind the lead of this race. UAE squad flash across the line. They've kept their 5 together. They've got a bit of daylight between themselves and Israel Cycling Academy, who were just 15 seconds back, but not inside at the moment. So all the action is happening up front. And what about BMC? Struggling to keep all 5 together, but Greg Daniel, he's my personal hero. He's hanging on in there. Well, here is the beginning of the final stage of the Hammer Series. A little bit of a jump start, but not of any great relevance, because they took a little bit of time to settle themselves into the action, and then they powered along. And within moments, it seemed they had caught the team directly in front of them. BMC on a charge, already ahead of Quick-Step early on the first lap, and then pretty quickly, by the time they came to the conclusion of lap 1, they already had the first team, Trek Segafredo, in their sights. So a bit of a reset of the order, and it's now the BMC squad keeping 5 together. Quick-Step have lost Gianluca Brambilla. He's done great work for the team throughout the 3 days so far. That's the recap. And here's the situation live, with just over 10 kilometers remaining for the teams up front. Team Quick-Step still very much under threat, I think, for their second position in this Group 1 fight. And on the front, putting the head down and really going for it, Dries Devenins, the Belgian rider. 6th on a stage of Giro d'Italia this year. Comes out with 3 weeks in his legs and still has the strength to fight here. And just 4 riders for the Quick-Step Floors team. Surely they could well be, I think, under threat from Trek Segafredo when they go for the big push.
Looking under threat, and look at that gap now that's open to Team BMC, really starting to ride away in this 3rd lap. So the specialists really coming to the fore now, and they're the really big boppers from Team BMC. They are guys who consistently ride for BMC at the World Championships team time trial. They're world champions in this team, Os, Kung, Kinziato, and along with a specialist like Miles Scottson. And for mine, they were the big favourites to win the Hammer Chase. But I think, looking at those damp roads, and a problem for Os, a flat front tyre, so a puncture for Os. So more bad luck for the Italian rock and roll rider, Daniel Os. Flat tyre, front wheel, that will count him out. They're down to 4, Team BMC, and that's exactly what they didn't need trying to win this Hammer Chase.
It's drama for Team BMC as Daniel Os, the Italian rider with the flowing locks, finds himself puffing the cheeks somewhat with frustration. He'll surely not get back into action now, even if he gets a front wheel. It's down to 4 against 4 as the Team BMC squad have lost one of their strongest riders. The Quick-Step Floors team in front of them, well, by the narrowest of margins. 4 seconds was the time gap we got last time round. And look at that, not too much as they are still trying to get on terms. BMC we saw out front, and they have now got the 2 teams behind them, Team Quick-Step Floors and Team Trek Segafredo, who started this race in front, remember. Well, Trek Segafredo are down to with BMC have lost 1 rider, but Trek Segafredo have kept 5 together, and they're almost in touch with Quick-Step.
Well, Trek Segafredo, now they've narrowed that gap down, opposite side of the road. Oss has had a wheel change, but the team's in front of him. That is Trek Segafredo, he can see, and Quick-Step, so he's trying to make his way back, but I very much doubt he'll catch his own teammates. But I think just riding out some of the frustration, or possibly in a hurry to get back to the hotel, have a shower and see how his teammates end up.
Well, what about this? I tell you what, if Daniel Oss gets even up to those other two teams, whatever about getting up to his teammates, that would be such an impressive effort. This is the lead squad. They're down to 4 riders, and Daniel Oss, one of their big engines, has been forced to pull to the side.
Well, think of it this way, Declan. Every team, it's the top 4 riders across the line that count. If BMC have another problem, another puncture, they're there with 3. So Oss, the best thing he can do is get back to those other teams and try and out-sprint them all to still cross the line and be in front and take 9th overall, and hopefully still, for them, win the Hammer Chase.
Well, it's a good call. He's got considerable motivation to stay in there just in case one of his other teammates struggles, and he could actually be in a match sprint for the win. Let's not rule that out. He's certainly thinking about it, and Daniel Oss is showing very, very impressive athletic ability to be even in touch. Down to the final 10 kilometres. Here are his 4 remaining teammates up front. And on the front, just pulling off, is Manuel Cunziato with Stefan Kung, who's done immense work for the team. Number 12 just taking it up on the front. Cunziato slots in 4th position. They've still got a very, very strong lineup.
Yeah, well, Kung, he's been an absolute powerhouse in this Hammer series, and he was their best man in the Hammer climb. A man over 80 kilograms, a time trial specialist, but such a massive engine. He was able to go with them early, those incredible attacks at the start of the Hammer climb stage, and hang in there the whole time, get really good points. Where Team BMC lost out and didn't make the cut of the top 8 teams was yesterday the crash of Daniel Oss. Like I said, really bad luck for him. A puncture now in the team's time trial. Crashing yesterday, and that lack of points left BMC stranded in the second 8 of the standings. Well, trying to make the best of it now.
Yeah, if it wasn't for bad luck, I think Daniel Oss wouldn't have any so far in the Hammer series, but he hasn't given it up, has he? And he's chasing down the 4 men of Team Quick-Step, the 5 men of Trek Segafredo, and still very much in touch. And he's got the team cars in front of him, of course, who are causing a little bit of added confusion, might have delayed him a little bit, and then of course gets no slipstream benefit from them on the way out of the corner. So a little bit of a delay there for Daniel Oss. He'll keep fighting. He's only got 8.5 kilometres to go. Having said that, these are going to feel like the longest 8.5 kilometres of his life, and indeed for the rest of these squads. On the front for the Trek Segafredo squad, chasing Quick-Step in 3rd position here, Matthias Braindle. Hasn't been missing from the front too often, has he? Ruben Guerrero just working his way up the line. They've still got their 5 together. Still getting contributions too from Greg Daniel. There's the gap between Quick-Step and Trek Segafredo and the BMC squad up front. Well, let's get that real-time gap to see, is it possible with 8 kilometres remaining for the Quick-Step or the Trek Segafredo squads to close down a gap that has expanded now out to what, 20, we wait to stop the clock, 27, 28 seconds. Yeah, so into the final 5 miles of racing, and 27, 28 seconds is going to be a tough gap to close.
Yep, I think it's beyond these 2 teams now. It will be interesting to see how this plays out between Team Quick-Step Floors and Trek Segafredo, really quite evenly matched. BMC, they will be runaway winners of the group 9 to 16, the 9th to 16th places. We'll see how their time stands up over the course of the afternoon when our top 8 teams get out on course. But it'll be interesting to see how the riders tackle this finish with Quick-Step Floors and Team Trek Segafredo being so close to each other. It'll be a sprint for the line, and the 4th rider across the line from each team counts. It'll be something very different to what we normally see in teams' time trials, where it's just clock watching.
Well, indeed, and plenty of opportunity to see the teams in front. That has, I think, played into the entertainment value of this event, isn't it? Because the teams haven't been able to get out of sight, out of mind. Trek Segafredo still very much in touch there up front here with Team BMC.
It's been a real seesaw battle between Quick-Step and Trek Segafredo, and now the gap opening up. Quick-Step going away again. Over 500 watts from Manuel Cunziato. As they punch out of the corner, it's Cunziato on the back of this group now, number 14. But punching out of that corner, 670 watts, and we have another puncture from Team BMC. This is exactly what we just spoke about. Daniel Oss already punctured, kept going, and now their fourth man, I think they have decided to wait. It's a rear wheel puncture.
Well, they've decided to wait, and they can only do that, really. And we could well have, or was it Bowley or was it Stefan Kung?
It was Kung.
Yeah. Oh, and it's an unbelievable situation here. BMC looked like they were all ends up in the lead and coasting to victory in this race between 9th to 16. It's been a bike change, so it looks like that the time trial bike just tossed into the right-hand side, so you can go and collect that later on and drop it back to the BMC truck. They'll be very grateful for it. Here come Team Quickstep on a charge to get back into contention. Team Quickstep, down to 4 riders, are going to get back into contention to take the victory. Well, they've been right with them throughout, and the BMC squad now find themselves in a scrap. And I'll tell you what, it'll be interesting to see where Daniel Oss is right now.
Well, my goodness, we spoke about it but never believed anything like that could happen, and next thing you know, that exact scenario is played out, and Quickstep are now right back in it, back onto the wheels, and they will be getting a huge rush of blood and rush of adrenaline, knowing that they can overtake BMC, but right behind them as well is Trek Segafredo. We could see a three-way sprint between 3 teams. Fourth man across the line. Team BMC now being passed by Quickstep.
Well, here they come. Team Quickstep have gone back into the lead, and they've got another puncture, have they? Another mechanical issue for the Quickstep, for the BMC squad. And they're just trying to put their team properly back together again, just bouncing up and down to see if they picked up another rear wheel puncture. Can it possibly be? They've dropped back, so it's a disaster for the BMC squad. And where right now is Daniel Oss? They badly need him, don't they? And the frustration for Tom Bowley as it's Miles Scotson, the young Australian, 23 years of age, finds he's got a rear wheel puncture. I think he would have been recommended maybe to ride that one all the way to the line.
I would have said, as his team, I would have said, just ride it to the line. That's the best thing you can do, because the team car stopped. They had to run back and get the other bike, which they'd left 150 metres behind. Scottson now, the team car has come up behind him, another bike. So that is the end of the chances of Team BMC. They've been passed by both Quickstep Floors and Trek Segafredo. So absolute disaster for the team. This time they do pick up the time trial bike thrown into the side of the road, but that is the end of the chances for Team BMC. What a disaster they've had.
Yeah, I didn't quite pick up Daniel Oss. I wonder, is he out there still? Had he given up the chase for a little while? But I think perhaps Daniel Oss had decided he would resign to his fate somewhat. Miles Scotson, though, is back into the action. His squad will wait for him, and they will try and salvage something from what's a very disappointing outing, because so far the class of the field in terms of power output, but you've got to pump those tires up and keep airing them, don't you? It's a technical exercise as well, and that's a source of frustration for Team BMC as these 3 teammates wait patiently, or maybe not so patiently, for Miles Scotson, who's and have they got another problem?
Looks like someone else has got a puncture now. Is it Manuel Quinziato? It's not. Another puncture.
It's another puncture. Can you believe it? And it's all for Team BMC. How are these punctures? It looks like Miles Scotson has got back on a bike with a punctured wheel, but it's not absolutely flat, so I'd keep riding it for a little while.
Unbelievable. You could be forgiven for suggesting that there's maybe a bad batch of tyres that the team has got. It's a 3rd puncture. Oss,
yeah.
the 4th one now. Yeah. You've had Oss, front tyre, then you've had Kung, rear, Scotson, rear, and now Quinziato, a rear puncture as well. And all the mechanic can do is just a wry smile, hand him a bike. They know it's all over, but they just cannot believe the rotten luck they've experienced. But the race goes on. Team Quickstep leading. Team Trek Segafredo. Look at that gap, still significant. Looks like Team Quickstep are going to lead this one home and win the race for the positions 9th to 16th in the Hammer Series.
Into the final kilometre and a half. It's just over a mile of racing left, and we've got 4 riders for Team Quickstep that are going for glory. They looked all ends up to have been defeated. They drop back to 3rd, back up to 2nd, having passed Trek Segafredo. And Trek Segafredo not minded to give this one up. Will they be able to close them down inside the final 1,400 metres? Well, Matthias Breinle is putting his shoulder to the wheel. It's a considerable heft that he can create there as well. And he's towing his teammates along in his wake. He's not willing to give this one up. 1,100 metres remaining, and Trek Segafredo going for glory.
Well, unbelievable. I just can't believe what I'm seeing here. I mean, such bad luck and so many riders from one team to puncture, and the other teams haven't suffered that fate at all. And the team we thought that was going to be hurt the most was Quick-Step Floors, losing Brambilla after just less than 2 laps. And it looks like now they are on their way to win this round. The teams in places 9th to 16th. They may even thought themselves, well, we're out of this one. BMC's ridden away, but how quickly things can turn.
Well, Quick-Step Floors are in control of this one. Matthias Brainler gave it an absolutely enormous turn of around about 500 metres plus, and then finds himself distanced. And Greg Daniel has done a great job of staying in the line throughout. He's been able to make his way through the rotation, and it's not much to choose between them. The final push to the line, can Matthias Brainler manage to recover and perhaps summon one more push? We're into the final run to the line with Team Quick-Step. Their 4 riders within sight of the finish line. They have a little look around, and Trek Segafredo going to push them all the way up this final finishing straight. It's a long push over 650 metres, and they can see the Quick-Step squad in front. They're panting and desperately trying to hang on. Quick-Step in front, and they're getting a little bit ragged, are they? And I don't think that Trek Segafredo are going to get there in time, are they? It's been an absolutely titanic battle. Let's say the final 50 metres, the battle for 9th to 16 has been a real thriller. And it is Quick-Step Floors that take that position. 52.38 is the benchmark time for the squads coming a little bit later on. 4 seconds the gap between them. I'll tell you what, if that's the hors d'oeuvre, the main course is going to be an absolute cracker, isn't it? Because that was superbly entertaining stuff. Bad luck really for Team BMC, but well, it's kept us entertained, hasn't it?
Oh, it's kept us entertained. I just sent out a tweet a little bit earlier saying this Hammer Series chase is really entertaining. And then all of this just happened. It got even better just when I thought it was already great. So, you know, terrible bad luck. Team BMC really punching it into the finish. So I think just like we said about us, riding out that frustration, because that's what they're going to be, terribly frustrated by that bad luck. But Team BMC, the favourites on paper, the best time trials, the best team's time trial team. But you see, it's not over till it's over, and anything can happen. And Team Quick-Step lead at home to take 9th in the Hammer Series. Team BMC.
Great to see this from Miles Scottson, isn't he? He's not willing to accept, and he's still showing motivation and a real professional attitude in pushing all the way to the line. And Miles Scottson that's going to lead the Team BMC squad across the line for 11th position in the Hammer Series overall. And I suppose the honourable mention for what's been a fighting performance from Team BMC, the class of the field in this Group 1 race, but well, those punctures really costing them dear. It's the BMC squad that at least have managed to hang on for that 3rd place finish. It just shows what a gap there was between them, and it's a wry smile, isn't it? They already understood quite a while ago just what that had meant. Meanwhile, Team Quick-Step, well, Gianluca Brambilla will be joined by his teammates Remy Cavagna, Dries de Venins, Yves Lampaert and Max Schachmann. The Rompot squad done a great job coming through to finish 4th on the Group 1 and 12th overall behind BMC, and just over 2 minutes and 11 seconds back. Started 1 minute 33 seconds in arrears from Trek Segafredo. Quick-Step squad have something to celebrate, and that's the benchmark time. We'll be watching for that later on to see who's going to win this stage. 52 minutes and 38 seconds was the fastest time from Group 1. Fastest time from Group 2. You'll see, does it improve? The weather has improved significantly. Bahrain Merida followed home in turn by UAE Team Emirates. We'll wait for the final 2 teams out on course to complete. The Israel Cycling Academy and Caja Rural are still out there duking it out for the final position. Those punctures will be a source of irritation and anxiety for the BMC team. There'll be plenty of discussions afterwards and plenty of detailed technical examination. Let's get a look at them coming up the home straight. The Quick Step Floors squad knew they were home and hosed at this moment. Bringing 4 to the line. Really nicely played effort by the Quick Step squad. Always, right from the get-go, closing in on Trek Segafredo, who started this time trial first, and it's a match race up the finishing straight for the final position. And Caja Rural haven't given up the fight. They were last after the first stage, last after the Hammer Sprint yesterday, and into the Hammer Chase. Well, they've put it up to the Israel Cycling Academy, who were leading them throughout, and well, it's a match sprint up the finishing straight. Absolutely cracking stuff. Who's going to get this one? Caja Rural on the left in the green. And fourth rider over the line. Looks like Caja Rural certainly have got that position. So the Quick Step squad have managed to prevail. Brambilla, Cavagna, Davinens, Lampert and Schachman have something to celebrate after a tough 3 days of racing. Robbie's caught up with them now. Let's hear from Quick Step.
Well, here in the mix zone with the Quick Step team, the winners of the race for 9th to 16th. The guys, how difficult was that on this technical circuit, and the fact that other teams were so close around you, in front and behind you? How difficult was it to keep an eye on things and ride your own race?
Yeah, we know from the start the gap between us and BMC was very small. Also, they got the best time specialist here on the start, and we knew they would catch us fast. And then we want to be as long as possible in their slipstream, but still they went really fast, and we got lucky. They got some punctures, and we could catch them back.
So when you saw Daniel Oss drop back after he'd had a puncture, did you start to think you were in with a chance against 4 riders of BMC?
Yeah, that was maybe a bit the moment that we thought, no, we will not slow down anymore. We pushed to the end, and then we saw they had the second puncture. Then we catch them, and we knew we had to bridge the gap of 16 seconds, and we went full to the finish line.
So Dries Devenens, once you guys saw that BMC had another problem and yet another puncture, it's like you guys got a big rush of adrenaline and really started your sprint to the finish line from there, because you knew you could take the win of the teams in 9th to 16th.
Yeah, of course. If you can win, you go for the win. Unfortunately, they had bad luck, but my 3 teammates here, they went full on ice, stayed in the wheel, yes.
Well done, Team Quick Step Floors. Enjoy it, and wait to see if your time stands up, because at the moment, fastest team, so in line to maybe win the Hammer Chase as well. So good luck with sitting in the hot seat.
A great show of humility by Dries Devenens and his teammates. It's been a solid effort, and they are confirmed 9th position for Team Quick Step Floors. 52.38 is the target time for the riders in Group 2. Trek Segafredo just failing to overhaul Quick Step Floors on this occasion. 4 seconds, and Team BMC 1 minute and 38 seconds back. Such a disappointing conclusion to what was a great performance from the BMC squad. Roompot Netherlands have done very well indeed. 12th position ahead of Bahrain Merida, UAE Team Emirates, Caja Rural and Israel. I think Robbie's caught up with the BMC squad. Tough day for them.
Well, the hard luck story of today, Team BMC, you know, they were on a roll. They caught the teams in front of them, but we all saw what happened. 4 punctures out of 5 riders. Manuel Quinziato, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's the frustration level?
Well, I think we would have been more frustrated with just 1 or 2 punctures. With 4, it was really like, it's not our day. I think, as I said before, it's better to have 4 punctures in one day than to have 1 puncture for 4 races. So today was gone. It's a pity, because we are really focused on today to win the day, this Hammer Series. But yeah, it was bad luck. It can happen.
Yeah, you guys had a little bit of bad luck. Yesterday lost Oss in the Hammer Sprint, and now lost him to a puncture first, but you were still pretty confident at that point you were going to get to the finish and win this round.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's our specialty. When you look at the lineup we have here, we're really the guys for this Hammer Chase, and we were really motivated. We were really going good, and that's a bit of a pity. I mean, like, when you do a good race, then you want to finish it in a good way. And when Oss punctured, we still kept about thinking just going as fast as possible to the line. But then, yeah, as Manuel said, when one after the other punctures, then at a certain point you just give up, and that's it.
Yeah, it was all over, but encouraging that they were going so fast early on, Team BMC. Bad luck, but there'll be more Hammer Series races in future. I'm sure we'll see them back on top of the table.
Well, what a day of racing we've had so far. We're only halfway. It was epic stuff. Fox and Hound concept proving a real winner as Trek Segafredo led off the line. BMC quickly into their stride. They catch Team Quickstep and vault ahead of the two teams in front of them. As Trek Segafredo slip back to third, and Gianluca Brambilla drops out of the action, leaves it up to his four teammates. They got the bell. Team BMC looked in pretty solid shape, didn't they? But then the wheels started to come off, metaphorically and in actual fact, because punctures galore for Daniel Oss, then for Stefan Kung, then for Miles Scottson, and then to put the icing on the cake, if that be the phrase, Manuel Quinziato finds himself in difficulty, and Quickstep Floors followed in turn by Trek Segafredo, powering past the erstwhile leaders. Frustration for Quinziato and his teammates as they would coast into a fine third nonetheless, leaving it up to Team Quickstep Floors to just about hold off Trek Segafredo's late push to get back in front. It's Quickstep that have taken the Group 1 fight, and they're 9th overall in the Hammer Series. Well, very time to draw breath before we get set for the Groups 1 to 8, the second group of racers into action. And it's Team Sky that are in the pole position in the overall hunt for honours in the Hammer Series. Team Sunweb, well, we initially thought that they'd be starting first, but just a recalculation of the points scored yesterday, and they had to take away the points, unfortunately, for Raymond Sinkeldam, who'd scored early on, but then found himself on the floor, crashed out of yesterday's Hammer Sprint, and Team Sunweb now will start this final push for glory, 32 seconds behind Team Sunweb, and Nippo Vinifantini further 28 seconds back, starting in third for the Pro Continental team. Well, that is a fantastic effort, and we'll be interested to see what sort of ability they're bringing to the team time trial format a little bit later on. The teams are making their final preparations. A while to go before they make their appearance on the finish line. A finish line, I can tell you, that is sun-baked and is pretty much dry at this point. So this course here, Sports Zone Limburg, Tom de Moulin Cycle Park. What an absolutely fantastic venue this has been for the event. It's given a real paddock atmosphere, a real almost motorsport type feel to the way that the setup is arranged, and all the team buses are in line. And it's been great for the spectators here at the venue as well. They've been able to mingle in amongst the teams. The teams have been present here for the last couple of days. And there's been great opportunity for the spectators to really get in amongst their heroes and get a sense and a flavour of Top World Tour racing. So we wait with bated breath, and it'll be interesting to see how the Cannondale Drapac Pro Cycling team manage to do they complete their preparations. They'll be starting 1 minute and 49 seconds behind Team Sky. 6th position of the 8 teams left in action. So 8 teams can still win this Hammer Series overall, and quite simply, it's the first team over the line that win the Hammer Series. In the team cars. And we've got Team Sunweb, Team Sky, Orica Scott and Team Movistar yet to make an appearance. They're giving the final instructions to the riders. Those are the team cars that we'll be in car with during the final Hammer Chase. Beautiful benign weather conditions. A little bit of wind has picked up overnight, as Robbie has told us a little bit earlier on even, and that did play a role. Did see the riders echeloned across the road, fighting the wind all always a bigger factor when you've got full disc rear wheels. There you have the gaps. It's 32 seconds between Team Sky are first away and Team Sunweb second into action. Lippo Fantini are a full minute behind Team Sky. Lotto Soudal, Movistar team, the Cannondale Dropback squad, Orica squad, and Team Lotto NL Jumbo will be fully 2.25 minutes behind Team Sky when they start. So the Team Sky squad have got that 30-second advantage. They've got an extra 2 seconds in bonus time, more than Team Sunweb. So that gives them that 32-second head start. Teams and riders mingling. Lotto Soudal will be starting fourth. Well, it has been a wonderful couple of days of action already into the third day of racing. Let's remind ourselves what fantastic racing we've seen in the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Sprint.
On Friday, the Hammer Series kicked off with a bang. A race of blistering speed. 16 teams locking horns in a relentless battle for points. But flying highest was Team Movistar, led by climbing sensation Carlos Betancourt of Colombia.
And he's going to dance across this gap. The Colombian sensation Carlos Betancourt, as he has done throughout the day, is going to score maximum points.
Even higher speed was on the menu come Saturday. This time around, teams were showing off their sprinting skills on a flat and fast course. Riding on the razor's edge, it was all about keeping up the pace throughout the entire race.
And here comes Sepp Van Mark. He knows he has to start at first, and Canolo's just a bit used up. He hasn't got the legs for it. They've shared the sprints. It's Sepp Van Mark that's going to get the final sprint of the day. He's going to act like it's a victory.
But Team Trek Segafredo had the final say.
Time to waste some bubbly, and they've certainly earned it, haven't they? What a great performance throughout the afternoon from Trek Segafredo. So Movistar and Trek Segafredo have won stage honours, and it's Team Sky, though, that have shown that consistency. They've established the all-important right to start first in the final group of riders set to head off very shortly. Now, the riders and teams have all been positively effusive in their praise for this fascinating new style of racing. And the final 8 teams ready to coax those weary limbs back into action. 2 short but very intense days of racing already. And here's what they have to facing them today. 3 laps of this 14.9 kilometer circuit here at Sittard Geleen, the Sports Zone Limburg, through that technical section. Plenty of corners at the beginning and then out into what is a substantially flat course. No hills worth the mention, but plenty of corners. We've seen them certainly play a role so far. It's pretty much the same course that they faced in the Hammer Sprint yesterday, with an extra 2.5 kilometres bolted on to give it its full 14.9, almost 15 kilometres, 3 times round. It's about 45 kilometres of team time trial racing, and I tell you what, with just units of 5 riders total, there's nowhere to hide. It's as tough as it gets in World Tour bike racing. Team Sky are into position. So too is Robbie. You've showing impressive fitness. You've clearly stayed fit, Robbie, because you're racing back and forth between the teams and back into position. And you're not even out of breath.
Well, the racing's been that exciting. It makes it easy to run around and get all the reactions after the race. And talking to those BMC guys, what terrible bad luck they had. But now we're going to see the top 8 teams go into battle. Let's have a look at how the teams are set up here at the Hammer Series.
If you skip a turn, no problem. And then jump in again on the spot, which is your place. And then find your rhythm again. Coach each other after the... Okay guys, short recap what we already spoke about. We are starting as second with Sky in front of us. We'll try to find a good pace. for us as team. We have to finish with 4, so we cannot blow up ourselves.
So many times. In other TTTs, when you make a mistake once, you don't have a lot of corners, but here you have so many corners. And we have to finish with 4. So if one feels he is almost at the end, then just give everything. And but of course, it would be really good if we can stay with 5 as long as possible, because that gives a really big difference in recovery in the wheels. If you lose 1 or 5, it's 20%.
So the big message is keep 4 riders, and I think that's going to change the tactics. There's no question of deploying resources early on and expecting to lose riders and then just finishing with a core outfit at the end. You've got to keep them all together as long as possible.
You do, and I'm sure the team directors and probably the riders themselves as much as possible during their warm-ups, but mainly the team directors and the guys be sitting in the cars giving the instructions. I'm sure they would have learned quite a lot from that first group of teams, our teams that were racing for 9th to 16th, the way they went about things, about the small time gaps, the passing, the trying to pace yourself off a team that's just passed you. So it's tactically a lot different to a normal team's time trial, and they would have been trying to get any edge they could by watching that last group.
That's been the sense of the first couple of days. They're really soaking this event up and learning so much, learning on their wheels, learning as it goes along, and tactically it's been absolutely fascinating to watch it play out. Team Sky, well, ready to get into action. Jonathan Dibben is their stage winner in Tour of California. Wayne Dool, the Welshman. Tao Geoghegan Hart from East London, getting ready to get into action with Danny Van Poppel, the local man, the 23-year-old from the Netherlands, and Elia Viviani. They'll be the first 5 riders into action. Ian Boswell has already scored for them in the Hammer Climb on day 1. I can tell you that Dibben, Viviani and Geoghegan Hart finished to find 2nd in the team time trial at the Copy Bartali week earlier in the year. Well, they're used to racing together. It's a relatively small lineup as well. And all the teams lined up and crowded around them. There's no sense of arriving into the to the start quite a distance behind the other teams. You get to see them, don't they? There's no hanging around.
There's not much time to watch the team in front of you go off, because you've got to get clipped in, held up and get ready to go as well, because the time gaps are really quite narrow. Biggest time gap we've got is between our top 2 teams going off the start line. Leading the chase out, Team Sky, but just 32 seconds later, Team Sunweb will be starting their chase. And then just a further 28 seconds behind them, the outperformers of this group, Nippo Vini Fantini, the only pro-continental team to get up and mix it with the World Tour teams and make it into Group 1, into the Hammer Chase final, trying to win this series.
Looking forward to some great Velon data from Elia Viviani, Team Sky's Olympic superstar on the track in the Omnium. And this is something of an Omnium, you might think, for teams in road racing conditions. Dibben, Dool, Geoghegan Hart, Van Poppel and Viviani within a minute of the beginning of the final push for glory. Well, they've done it absolutely perfectly so far. Haven't won either of the first 2 stages, but they've been so consistent in their scoring, and that has established them best aggregate from finishing positions in the first 2 stages.
30 seconds!
A couple of extra bonus seconds gained over the second team into action. Team Sunweb lined up behind them. 30 seconds to go now to the beginning of the final push in the Hammer Chase. It's hammer time. Team Sunweb 32 seconds behind. It's a further 28 seconds back to Nippo Vini Fantini, 12 seconds back to Lotto Soudal, Movistar, Cannondale Drapac, Orica Scott, Team Lotto NL Jumbo. It's all about Team Sky. And they're up and running. And the Hammer Chase is underway as Team Sky have the biggest gap between the riders and between the teams.
Today in the Hammer Sprint, and unfortunately for Sunweb, his points then not counting as he didn't finish the stage, which dropped them to 2nd. But psychologically, they've got something to chase with Sky in front of them, and Team Sunweb are away. The chase has begun.
Yeah, it's Fox and Hound. And this is the Hounds, the first of the Hounds, because they're already into action. It's only 12 seconds back to, 28 seconds back to Nippo Vini Fantini. less than a minute. Narrower gap between Nippo Vinifantini and Team Sunweb than the gap between Team Sunweb and Team Sky. Nippo Vinifantini, Canola, Kanega, Filosi, Kobayashi and Uchima. They're 5 riders. Lotto Soudal now just 12 seconds behind. De Buskers, Seberg, Verbeek, Wallace and Wellens just 12 seconds to make up to catch the Pro Conti team.
Well, really coming in quick succession now. It's only 17 seconds between Lotto Soudal and Movistar, with Betancourt, Carretero, Nelson Oliveira, Alex Dowsett and Marc Soler. So they have the job ahead of them to try and catch Soudal and all the rest in front. Lining up behind them, Team Cannondale will be next.
So Team Cannondale with Paddy Bevan, Will Clark, Ryan Mullen, Tom Scully and Sepp Van Mark. Considerably imposing figure of the Belgian rider. And they're just 20 seconds behind the Movistar squad, 1:49 behind Team Sky, who are well into their effort at this point.
And another quick gap down to Orica Scott, one of the favourites for this. A big job to catch Sky, a long way in front, over 2 minutes. But Durbridge, Edmondson, Heyman, Hepburn and Kluger, real specialists of the team time trial. All strong time trialists in their own right. Heyman, an ex-winner of Paris-Roubaix. He's tough enough to undergo this. And their chase has started.
And the final team into action, Team Lotto Enel Jumbo, just 14 seconds behind Orica Scott. 2 minutes and 16 seconds to make up for Lars Bohm, Victor Kampenetz, Thomas Laser, Jos van Emden and Robert Wagner. So Team Lotto Enel Jumbo, the 8th of our teams, with that 14-second gap to make up. And meanwhile, out on the road, we pick up Team Sky as Theo Gegenhardt. What a great job that he did on day one. Also coming to grief, another rider that's been down and in the wars. Hasn't let it quell or curb his motivation for the effort. And the big message coming from the buses, you've got to keep 5 together. They will have seen as well how important that is. See how they're lining up as well. He's following Viviani up the line. Viviani in turn has Owain Doull in front of him. 82 is John Dibben. He's a big engine. And he's emerging talent. He's in his first year of racing. And the other rider as well, Danny Van Poppel, was just peeling off the front there.
Well, Declan, Team BMC, well, they showed us that you just can't afford to just sit up, have one rider dropped, and even if you puncture or have a problem, you've got to push on, continue, because your team may well need you. You've got to cross the line with 4 riders together. So if one punctures, he has to try and get back, because if there's a problem with one of the other riders, you're back in the game. As we now look at Viviani's stats, 177 beats a minute, 56 kilometres an hour, 103 cadence, are really wound up. The track specialist for that high cadence, and Sky gone out really very hard. And Team Sunweb now start the chase without Tom Dumoulin, who was so good for them in the hammer climb, getting the team off to a good start. But these are big, strong guys. This is Max Walskade, we can see.
He's as big as they get.
He's about as big as you get in cycling. I'd almost say he's almost too big to put him on a bike. He'd have to be reinforced to put up the power he's putting out.
Well, he's 1.99 m, so just a smidge short of the 2 meters, but he's a pretty big guy. Ramon Sinkeldam as well. Well, we're on bike with him at the moment, and Sinkeldam has coaxed those injured limbs into action. And well, it'll be interesting to see whether that will affect him, whether he'd struggle a little bit. There we have Sinkeldam. It must be sore actually to rest those sore arms on those pads.
Yeah, well, look at that. Both elbows and the right knee all bandaged up. And you look at behind him, Walshaw trying to get down low. Sinkeldam's the next biggest guy in the team, so Walshaw behind him. And here looks like we're getting the first catch of the day. Lotto Soudal coming up on Nippo Vinifantini.
Absolutely, with the Lotto Soudal squad. Well, they only had to make up 12 seconds, and this is the battle for 3rd place. So Lotto Soudal already into action, and without any difficulty, as they just move ahead of Nippo Vinifantini, the Pro Continental team, without too much difficulty. And that's really going to form, isn't it? Because Nippo Vinifantini not particularly expected to excel at this, despite the great heroics from Yuri Filosi, Marco Canola over the last couple of days.
Yes, that is within expectations, as Louis Vervaeke led the Lotto Soudal past the team of Vinifantini. Now it's important, there has been an agreement, it was said in the managers' meeting, that when a team has been passed, if the front team is sitting on the left, the team behind should go into the right-hand lane and avoid, and here we're getting the signal from one of the race referees, go over in your own lane on the right, that's the way, well done. And Lotto Soudal will have taken great motivation out of the solo win of Thomas de Gendt in Dauphiné earlier today. So they're on a roll and looking to try and catch Team Sky and grab another win.
And look at this, as we see Team Sunweb have already closed the gap, because we're getting the indication that they've managed to close in by 8 seconds. They started this time trial 32 seconds behind Team Sky. They're now just 23 seconds, so that's 9 seconds gained.
Well, we had a lot of people talking about, well, Team Sky starting first, of course they're going to win. They're very good team time trials. But they don't have their specialists here. All due respect to the riders that are here, but 2 sprinters, Viviani and Van Poppel, they're not time trialists. And Tao Geoghegan Hart is a pure climber, so they're going to be up against it to hold off a team. Big, powerful riders like they have for Sunweb, used to these type of conditions. A few Dutchmen amongst them, they love it when the wind gets up.
Well, they're on a big charge, and, well, getting the wind up Team Sky a bit at the moment, aren't they? Because Team Sky are finding that their advantage of 32 seconds is dwindling, and dwindling fast. And it's units of the size of Max Walscheid that are driving on the front. And Zico Waitens in his wake, and just behind him, Leonard Kamna, who's the youngest rider in competition this week, just 20 years of age. Waitens, he's a pretty big and strong rider himself. 25 years of age, stage win the Tour of Belgium of late, and 330 odd watts. That's all he needs to follow Max Walscheid up the line.
Well, sitting in the wheel, 330 watts and a great big slipstream to follow. He's now hit the front, Waitens, as Max Walscheid comes to the back of the group. Get a bit of respite. Team Sky, they're already around that corner and onto the next straight. Picking up a bit of tail crosswind along this section, very fast. See the grass blowing in the background there. So a very, very fast section, but it's only really short. And the next section, they get a bit more tailwind as we head back to Lotto Soudal in front of Nippo Vini Fantini. But the gap's still there, and we've seen this quite a bit in the first part of this race today. Hard to break that elastic once you've made the pass.
Yeah, it's hard to break the elastic, and it's also a source of encouragement for the teams that have been caught. They're still in this, and we saw that with Trek Segafredo and Team Quickstep. Well, Quickstep Flores had made the catch, but Trek Segafredo didn't give it up, and we're still very much in the hunt. And I think that could be a source of encouragement for Team Sky, that should Team Sunweb get to them early, that it's not yet done and dusted at that moment.
Well, it is never done. We saw the gap that Team BMC had built up over Quickstep Floors, and then with all those punctures, suddenly Quickstep were back in the lead, and they led home the group of the 9th to 16th teams. So a lot of advice will be coming now from the team cars. Team Sky with plenty of tactics to talk about.
Come on, guys, keep the pace, come on, short turns, 1k and we turn right.
So short turns, Savas Carnarvon says, but 1k and we turn right. In fact, Team Sky and Savas, you'll be turning left. If you turn right, you'll be in the middle of a field. So about another kilometre, they take that left-hand turn. It's the addition to yesterday's Hammer Sprint course. Gives them an extra 2.5 kilometres to make this a 14.9 kilometre lap. And Team Sky looking nice and smooth. It'll be interesting to get another time check, because Team Sunweb had already taken 8 seconds in the first 4 kilometres of this Hammer chase.
Short turns for Team Sky, that's the order, as Wayne Dool peels off the front and then gives it up to Viviani, who in turn peels off, and it's now Tao Geoghegan Hart that picks it up. He's rolling around, rocking and rolling the shoulders as the impressive climber finds himself now trying to produce the power necessary to hold off Team Sunweb behind. And at the moment, well, they're very smooth in rotation, but we'll see do cracks develop, because at 45 kilometres, it's a pretty long team time trial.
It's a long team time trial, not in terms of normal team time trials when you're riding with 8 or even 9 riders, but when it's just 5 riders, it comes around very quickly that you're back on the front, and it's the real specialists that can take advantage of that. And Team Sunweb, they can see Sky right in front of them. That is the Commissaire's car in between, but if they look across to their left, there they are. And I don't think that's 28 seconds even more. I think they've gotten even closer.
Well, they're getting closer, and here's that little crosswind section as the riders and teams echelon across the road. We keep calling it a team time trial, of course. It's not a team time trial. It's a chase. It's a pursuit. And the first team across the line is the team that wins. There is the matter of stage honours. That'll be calculated on time. But overall honours in the Hammer Series is all about which team gets to the finish line at the conclusion of 3 tough laps. At the moment, it's looking good for Team Sunweb, but they've still got to get on terms with Team Sky. Holding on still to we'll wait for full confirmation, but it's less of an advantage than they started. It was 32 seconds, remember.
Well, our graphic on the left was saying about 28 seconds. And don't forget, Lotto Soudal made a really strong start. They've already passed Nippo Vinifantini. They're about equal distance behind Sunweb, that Sunweb are behind Team Sky, and we're only halfway through lap 1.
Still very much early days. Swinging around at the back is Zico Waitens. He's pulling off the front there. Leonard Kamna, 5th on GC in the Tour of California late recently, so he's bringing some good form into the Hammer Series, the first and inaugural edition. Kamna is relatively slight of stature compared to some of his teammates. The Team Sunweb squad certainly brought big power. For the intermediate times coming up very shortly. Another turn to be made on the course. The crowd are coming out to see this one. Down to 25 seconds. So Team Sky are holding them off. But, well, it's initially there was a big gain for Team Sunweb. And if anything, Team Sky have responded to that and have steadied the ship a little bit. It's Team Sunweb 25 seconds back, a minute and 2 seconds further back for the third team.
Well, looking further back on those time checks, Team Orica Scott had made up nearly 30 seconds on Team Sky, but in turn, Team Cannondale were only 1 second behind Orica. So they've just about made the catch on Orica, those two teams coming together, but they seem to be flying up behind the teams that started in front of them. And Orica Scott, a really strong team's time trial team, and I would say pretty soon we'll see them make the catch on Movistar.
Well, here we have the scrap between teams 3 and 4, and that's Lotto Soudal have already made the catch on Nippo Vinifantini and moved into third position. They're 1 minute and 2 seconds behind. Now they started 1 minute and 12 seconds behind Team Sky, and look at all the other teams almost in line astern as they scrap on these roads of Limburg in southern part of the Netherlands now, and Movistar are being chased down and harried by Team Orica Scott.
And in turn, they're being chased by Cannondale and Team Lotto NL Jumbo. So these final 4 teams making big inroads on the lead of Team Sky. Still a minute and a half, but these 4 teams all within about 11 seconds now.
Well, the catch is being made on Cannondale Drapac. We might have expected them to step up a little bit. Orica Scott have moved ahead of Cannondale Drapac. They're dropping back into the clutches in turn of Team Lotto NL Jumbo. Team Lotto NL Jumbo started the 8th of these squads out here. Team Cannondale Drapac were 6th off the start line. First off the start line, still first and still in control are Team Sky at the moment, and they have it's hard, isn't it? Jonathan Dibben, after his effort, just has to find the energy to get back into the wheel. Down to 22 seconds, and after that initial gain for Team Sunweb, well, Team Sky have responded a little bit and haven't been too much gains in the last couple of kilometres.
No, the gains haven't been big, but it's now steady as she goes. 21 seconds now, the gap between Team Sky and Sunweb. Well, fluctuating a little bit, but that's probably more down to the transponders, the GPS units that are on the motorbikes out there. The camera motorbikes is where our timing comes from to give us these time gaps. So it can fluctuate a little, but they definitely have them in their sights just up the road there. Here, Nippo Vinifantini passed by Lotto Soudal, but hanging on to their coattails.
A great never say die response from Nippo Vinifantini, and they're being towed a little bit closer to Team Sky by this effort because Lotto Soudal, well, they made early inroads, and they're maintaining that. We wait for the intermediate splits to give us that full expression of that. I tell you, with 32 kilometres remaining and 22 seconds between them, it's an easy calculation. A second a kilometre will do it. So if Team Sunweb can start to make the gain of a second of a kilometre, they'll get to Team Sky. Having said that, getting to them is one thing. Getting past and then making it count in the final dash to the line, well, that's another thing entirely. And we have seen match sprints between teams for position at the end of the scrap for positions 9 to 16. Look at this. Well, it's practically a match race out there as Team Orica Scott have got themselves up into a position to challenge the team 5th on the road, Team Movistar. And Cannondale Drapac have managed to get themselves going as well.
Yeah, well, they're managing to pace themselves off the team of Orica Scott, but right behind them, they look like they're about to get caught again by Lotto NL Jumbo, led by Jos van Emden, the winner of the final stage, the time trial in the Tour of Italy just a week ago, and he's really riding on a high, along with Lars Boom, trying to pull their team up from 8th position, get past Cannondale. But the big movers at the moment, Lotto Soudal have gone past Nippo Vinifantini, but Movistar look like they're about to tumble backwards because 3 fast teams coming at them.
But the final 4 teams in action were only 13 seconds apart of the first intermediate split that we got. And that's a blink of an eye, isn't it, when you've got all those riders in contention. There's virtually nothing to choose between them. Just 13 seconds between those final 4 teams. So that's an interesting scrap. We're watching it with interest to see who are the movers and shakers, who's going up, who's going down. At the moment, it's looking solid for Team Sky. They're going to be able to hang on to that 22-second lead. Is it shrinking? Our Team Sunweb getting into position. Well, moving up is Owain Doull, 24-year-old.
Early on, that gap was coming down between Sky and Sunweb, but I think Sky were confident enough, cool enough to go off at a moderate pace early, wind themselves into this team's time trial, into this hammer chase, so maybe give away a few seconds, but then find their rhythm. Because if you take off too quick in a team's time trial, it can really bite you towards the end of it.
Yeah, it's about measuring your effort, and this is it's a long time to be on your time trial bikes, and the teams are in amongst themselves. Still got 5 together. We've got the Orica Scott squad and Cannondale Drapacker there, and Movistar dropping like a stone. So they've been passed by 2 teams in quick succession just lately, and now it's Team Lotto NL Jumbo are about to put Movistar, the heroes for many of day 1. They won the Hammer Climb, remember, and they're very shortly to end up the 8th team in action in this second part of the final day of action in the Hammer Series.
Well, the gaps were so small, it was almost certain to happen that we'd have teams come together in lap 1. But out the front, this gap is staying fairly steady between Team Sky. You can see in the background, Sunweb trying to make more inroads. They pretty quickly took about 7 seconds, but they seem to be hanging there now.
1 lap down, and Team Sky still own it. They're in control at the front. When I say in control, what's the gap? Well, coming through the heat days are Team Sunweb, the local team. They'll be cheered on to glory. Can they possibly get in touch with Team Sky? We've got the stopwatch running to see exactly what the gap is between Team Sky up front and Team Sunweb. Remember, they started with 32 seconds, 1 lap down. What is the gap between them as they... It's 24 seconds, so it's holding steady. And Team Sky have, if anything, increased their advantage in the last kilometre or so. It's all about measuring your effort over 3 tough laps.
It's like I said, a steady start for Team Sky, and then they gave away a few seconds, but really found their rhythm and been holding Sunweb at that constant gap of around 24 seconds. Our 3rd place team on the road now coming in, Lotto Soudal. They, of course, passed Vini Fantini early on in lap 1. They are coming through in 3rd place, Lotto Soudal, and the time keeps ticking away, and those 2 teams in front of them have got a pretty healthy gap as they come through at 1:02 from the leaders, 42 seconds.
I'll tell you what,
38 seconds from Sunweb.
No change at all there for Lotto Soudal from their early game. They got 10 seconds back. They started 1 minute and 12 seconds down on Team Sky. They got 10 seconds back in a thrice, and then we haven't seen any gain since that first split. So very similar between Lotto Soudal and Team Sunweb on the gain on Team Sky. And there's pretty much honours even over the last 7.5 kilometres between Team Sky, Team Sunweb and Lotto Soudal. They've done pretty much the same times. Now, coming through in the lower order.
Well, the biggest movers in terms of time is Orica Scott. They started at 2 minutes and 2 seconds and now just 1:27 behind. So they're making big moves, but with just 2 laps remaining, it's a big ask to narrow down that gap to Team Sky and Sunweb, who are the 2 that look most likely at the moment to go on and win this Hammer Series.
Well, Orica Scott best off that corner as well, because all the squads behind them are in line astern. Bit of a traffic jam there in that technical section. They race out of the sport zone here. Team Sky now 24 seconds. There's the confirmed gap at the line at the conclusion of lap 1 on Team Sunweb. Lotto Soudal in 3rd position, 1 minute and 2 seconds back and still very much in the hunt. Nippo Vini Fantini, well, they're maintaining a watching brief on Lotto Soudal and hanging on grimly. Orica Scott are on the move, sitting 5th now.
Well, looking at those time splits, if everybody rides the same pace they have in lap 1 and continue to give up seconds or take seconds the same way they are, it would put Orica Scott in contention to catch Team Sunweb right at the end. But if Team Sky can hold this tempo, it looks like they may just be able to stay away. But we saw so much happen in the final lap of that first group of teams that this is a long way from a done deal.
Well, Orica Scott are on an absolutely tremendous charge, and they're bringing the other teams with them, and Team Movistar hanging on to their coattails. They're sitting 8th at the moment, so teams 5th to 8th well, pretty much locked in combat together. As Team Sunweb, well, they have a lonely road at the moment. Only 24 seconds they need to try and close down as Max Walscheid goes to the front again. The big German rider, 5-stage victories in Tour of Hainan last winter, really announcing himself on the world stage. That big training crash that happened at the beginning of last season as well, which was a difficult moment for him, but now I think he's very much in his element. Just in front of him, Ramon Sinkeldam, his arms bandaged, must be hurting a little bit. Sinkeldam's got the camera on board, of course. And they're maintaining formation as well, because Walscheid started behind Sinkeldam, so there hasn't been any change in their formation.
Last position.
Team Sunweb, what's the instruction?
Well, I'm not sure he knew even what to say at the moment, but they are looking good. And if I was going to say anything to him, I'd say, boys, just keep your rhythm and keep the fluids up as well. 45 kilometres, it's not a very hot day. It's only about 20 degrees, but you just got to keep the fluids up. So you've got to keep thinking to get the maximum performance out, because it's going to come down to those vital seconds. And getting that fourth rider across the line is what gives you your placing in the Hammer Chase.
Here's Walscheid just following Ramon Sinkeldam up the line, waiting for his turn to put immense pain and suffering into his teammates and indeed into his own legs. Walscheid has been real fine, hasn't he? Young rider.
It's not hard to find him. He's 2 metres tall.
He's a big lump, isn't he? And he's wearing his road helmet. That's something that was discussed in the team meeting this morning. They just thought for communication between the teams and the riders, it made more sense to wear the road helmets.
It does. With such close racing, it is vital to hear calls from a team coming from behind you, because with the time trial helmets on, you really can't hear much at all, especially if you've got a radio in one ear and a time trial helmet on. Then you can't hear those calls coming from another team, and we could see an accident because of lack of communication. So it was decided every team would wear their road helmets, give them a bit more awareness out on the road, because it's a lot more like bunch racing.
Well, we get the virtual time gap organised for us now. They've started the stopwatch, and Team Sky being pursued by Team Sunweb. They can see them up the road as it stretches out in front of them, and little to choose between these outfits. Once they got going, initial gains by Team Sunweb, but then what's it stabilised at? Well, it's sitting at about 22 seconds, so a few seconds gained through the sports zone since they raced across the line, because there's 24 seconds at the line, remember, so a couple of seconds gained, but I think they need more of a gain now. They need to start making regular inroads. It's quite an impressive pursuit.
Well, this is where it really starts to happen in a team's time trial, in the second 2/3 of the race. It's easy at first to go out and hold a high rhythm. Everybody's fresh, but then things start to get a little bit ragged. The riders start to get fatigued. It can start to fall apart a little bit, and you start to lean more on the strongest time trialist in your team. Particularly if you're not evenly matched, it makes it much more difficult. Now look at this, a bit of a shambles here with teams riding behind each other. Nippo Vinifantini being passed by a number of teams, and you just cannot separate. Lotto NL Jumbo, Cannondale Drapac, and in front, Orica Scott.
That looks like a triathlon, doesn't it? All on the aero skis and in amongst each other, and I think they need to make a couple of decisions. There needs to be a little bit of input here from the referee. Commissars need to instruct the teams, I suspect. Well, I mean, it would be wise for Nippo, and you can't really blame Nippo Vinifantini right now for the positions they're taking, because all the other teams are doing it. So I think there needs to be a bit of an intervention.
There does. What was instructed to the teams, if the team at the front, which in this case is Orica Scott, if they're riding on the right-hand side of the road, the following team should ride on the left, the next team stagger back to the right again, and so on and so forth, that nobody's really sitting in the wheel. But at the moment, Team Movistar are basically just sitting on the back of Orica Scott.
Yeah, problem is you need 5 lanes here. You only got 2. Now, Cannondale Drapac are doing the right thing. They're staying to the left. I think they're getting a bit of shelter in that position as well. Nippo Vinifantini aren't exactly sure what lane they want to choose. Lotto NL Jumbo in similar turn. And Nippo Vinifantini, remember, started this event and started this final push in the Hammer Chase in 3rd position. They slipped back into this scrap.
We see now Team Cannondale were making a pass back on Orica Scott. They sat in the wheels for a long time, got that bit of rest, rode up into the slipstream, and then pulled out to the left and went back past. So it's getting a bit complicated back there with so many teams. And I would say the riders not quite doing the right thing at the moment. But up at the front, it's still Team Sky, but the time gap now we're being given 17, 18 seconds back to Sunweb, so they're starting to make more inroads. They quickly took 8 seconds. On this lap, it seems they've jagged another 6 or 8.
Big gain there for Team Sunweb. Now they're coming with a big push, and out of every corner it's increasingly difficult as Owain Doull manages to fight his way back into the wheel of his teammates. This battle is certainly on. 22.1 kilometres remaining. It could well be that just the first initial kilometres of the course are really suiting Team Sunweb, but this is a bit of a scrap, isn't it? And the road is so narrow, it's actually difficult to manage it. But I think the teams just need to accept their fate, drop back several bike lengths, and understand that, 13, 14 bike lengths, whatever the understanding is, just drop back there, reset, and then go again.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation. Things may sort themselves out a little bit more once they take that left-hand turn off the straight they're on now and into that slight crosswind. So it may give an opportunity for the stronger teams to put a gap on the others behind, and things will sort themselves back out. But when you get so many riders coming together through this technical little circuit here at the Tom Dumoulin Bike Park, it's hard to get them separated. And let's face it, the speed differential amongst these top teams really isn't that much. So it's very difficult to go past and make a big gap straight away.
Yeah, unless they had one drag strip with 5 lanes and a straight road for 45 kilometres, it really is very difficult to manage it. I tell you what, though, it's interesting, it's fascinating, and the way it's developing. And it was a great shot there of Zico Waitens really struggling to get back into the wheel after his turn. These riders are putting everything they possibly have out on the roads of Limburg to try and take this first Hammer Series. So Danny Van Poppel slides back into the line. All seamless, seems seamless to us, but I tell you what, it's a real battle, it's a real fight. Van Poppel safely in the wheels, the Netherlands rider into action now. We have Orica Scott has managed to retain Lotto Soudal, so well, it's 2 teams up front in a match race for first and second positions, and all the other teams in action are in shot at the moment.
Well, Orica Scott have ridden through from 7th up to 3rd at the moment, but as they've gone through, everybody seems to be tagging on their coattails, as here with Team Sky getting into a little bit of trouble now, Jonathan Dibben. So he's been doing some big turns on the front, but when he slides through to the back, he's just having a little bit of trouble getting back in the slipstream, and it's Owain Doull who's following him through. So maybe putting a little bit too much pressure on for Dibben's liking. And he's just called him in, and that's a real bad sign for Team Sky that one of the riders now starting to suffer and having to call the others in between.
Oh, it's absolutely crucifying. And I tell you what, he's a very, very good time trial rider, John Dibben. He won the time trial in the Tour of California recently. He's a neo-pro, but he is a super strong rider on his day. But I'm really feeling for him a little bit, because I'm not sure he's going to be able to last a whole lot longer. He's going to try and attack his way out of this next corner. The gap now down to 16 seconds. It's getting incredibly close. It's still 19.7 kilometres to go. A long way to go. The Team Sky in a little bit of trouble, a little bit of anxiety in that team car. Concentration from the Team Sunweb DS.
Well, Servaas Knaven, the director sportif of Team Sky, he was a time trial specialist himself, very good in the team's time trial, and I saw the look of concern on his face, rating through to his riders what's happening with Jonathan Dibben, and to stay cool and try and stick together. And as we're getting new time checks in, still hovering at 20 seconds, Team Sunweb behind Team Sky. Orica Scott up into 3rd place at 1 minute and 5. They've effectively halved their gap that they started with, but look at those time gaps behind. 106, 4 teams, and then Nippo Vini Fantini at 107. So basically all those teams riding as a bunch.
Yeah, it's a big bunch behind. I don't know how they're going to separate them. I tell you what, it's going to be a great sprint for the line for 3rd position. Meanwhile, will there be a sprint, or will a team ride solo up the finishing straight to take victory in the inaugural Hammer Series? What a great effort from John Dibben. He's managed to get himself back in the wheel, and Team Sky have steadied the ship a little bit. They're holding steady at 17 seconds, but these pushes from Team Sunweb, well, they're like little punches to the stomach, aren't they? And they're having an effect.
Well, really important for Team Sky is that Jonathan Dibben has realised soon enough that he's struggling and put himself in last position and called the other riders in between. Because if you don't recognise that situation, you go too deep in the red, you blow up, you get dropped, you're of no more use to your team. If you can sit at the back, then you can recover somewhat and be of some use to your team. We're going to hear from Orica Scott in the team car over the radio to their riders.
Guys, really good start. Still really good start, okay? Let's not get worried about all these riders. Let's just do our time trial. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's just do our best time trial here.
Well, nothing we can do about it, and Team Orica Scott are doing a very good job. I think a little blame attached to them because they're in front of this big train, and they have, well, they have a bit of a scrap going with Team Cannondale Drapac, who they've passed already. But Team Orica Scott and Nippo Vinifantini are one squad that are instructed to drop a little bit further behind. They've got a Lotto Soudal rider for company. That's Louis Vervec, who's trying to relocate his teammates. To show you what an interesting scenario. And it's Dibben, he's finally cried enough, and it just has been an unequal scrap for him lately, and they're down to 4 up front. Critical moment for Team Sky.
It is absolutely critical, and Dibben not able to recover enough in last position to hang on into this last lap. 17.5 kilometres to go, and now the advantage swings firmly to Team Sunweb. We saw this in the last race. Quick step down to 4. We thought they were done for. They end up winning that scrap for the 9th to 16th places, so much can still happen. But Sunweb, I think this puts them, even though they're not in front yet, puts them in the driver's seat.
Well, have they just gone favourites? They're 15 seconds back. Big turn here from Albert Timmer. He's making his teammates hurt, and they overtake Jonathan Dibben. The motivation and the morale they're going to get from that is going to be significant.
That's a huge morale boost. If you see someone explode out of the team in front of you, and you know then you've got one more rider at your disposal, that gives you a massive morale boost and that little bit extra energy, some adrenaline to use as they come in with less than 17 kilometres to go. 14 seconds now the time gap, so Sunweb really starting to make big inroads now that Sky are down to 4.
Lennart Kemna at the back now as just dropping off the front. Number 94, Albert Timmer. That was a big turn, wasn't it? Raymond Sinkeldam, after his crash difficulties yesterday, has not been found wanting today. Sinkeldam, in turn, will hand over to Max Walscheid, and they have maintained their order. They haven't had any difficulties. They haven't had riders missing turns.
Well, that was one thing their team director said in the team meeting when we saw it earlier in the bus. Stay in your position, swing back into your position. Also coach each other out on the road. Tell each other what's going on. If you're missing a rider, let the other one know as he's swinging back. So really disciplined ride from Sunweb. But that gap holding now at 16 seconds. So Sky definitely not giving it up. We could see a sprint finish between these two teams. Sky with Viviani and Van Poppel, very fast sprinters. But how's Geoghegan Hart going to go in against the powerhouses from Sunweb, who are all pretty rapid?
Well, they've got themselves organised, and what a great response, because we're seeing the intermediate times, the times on our screen. They've actually gained a few seconds through that last little chicane, little bit of drop-off there for Team Sunweb. They slipped back to 18 seconds back, then a second gain. They are trading seconds here and there, but this is a wonderful response from Team Sky. They're getting plenty of encouragement coming from the Service Canavan behind. Let's hear from the Team Sky car.
Okay guys, come on, accelerate again. Come on, time gap stays the same now, eh? Come on, 16 seconds we are in front. Come on guys.
So it's quick and accurate information going to those riders. 16 seconds, that's 17. It went up to 18 briefly. So they're into the closing stages of lap 2.
Well,
within sight of the bell.
Savas Canavan really trying to encourage his riders, try to accelerate again, but I'm sure that's the sort of advice that goes in one ear and out the other when you've been at maximum already for 30 kilometres so far with just under 15 left to race. But encouraging for the team, the time gap is staying the same at 16, 17 seconds. So that'll be music to their ears, knowing that they're holding Team Sunweb off at the moment.
Waiting to start the clock when they hit the line. 2 laps completed. 2/3 of this pain and suffering have been completed for our leaders. Team Sky established the advantage through the first 2 days of action, and they're hanging on grimly. Their advantage now sitting and hovering around about 8 seconds to the second team in line. Team Sunweb are handing them down. They're chasing them. They've got them in sight. They've got the Team Sky team car just in front of them. Now, what's it going to be at the line for Team Sunweb? All 5 riders still part of their lineup. Very much in control, and on the front Albert Timmer leads them across the line with 18 seconds, the confirmed gap. They've actually lost a couple of seconds in the last couple of kilometres.
18 seconds back to rider number 4 of Team Sunweb, but it's about getting back in contact. So they've even got another second or so up their sleeve to get back in contact, to maybe just get towards the slipstream. And talking of slipstream, well, that is...
Here's the bunch behind.
Just making fun of it a little bit with Lotto NL Jumbo just sitting clean in the wheel. These other teams effectively using the power of Orica Scott to bring themselves up and then be in a position to attack over the top of them at the end, because they're all just saving energy, completely fresh. And Orica Scott doing a fantastic ride now. Look how much they've brought back Team Sky, back into 103. Wow. That's half of what they started behind.
That is remarkable stuff, and great stuff from Team Orica Scott. They've been doing all the catching. They find themselves, just as they get to the line, pipped for that position with 1 lap remaining by Lotto Soudal, who will command it. And I suppose there's some value in that, in trying to get to the front in this technical section. But I suppose to a certain extent these teams are playing the ref, aren't they? And it requires some commissar intervention to prevent them from sitting in the slipstream. But well, for all that, they do know the rules, don't they?
They do, and I think it needed to be done right away to get them on separate sides of the road where the road really is wide enough, and really enforce that rule very strongly. Out the front, Sky and Sunweb riding completely on their own, but by the same token, these teams all sitting behind each other don't have a choice here on the circuit. It's so technical, it's so narrow, you can't go anywhere else. But out in the open road, it'd be good to see them separated somewhat.
Well, what a great day of action it's been, the second half, as they race for the Hammer Chase, and it's Team Sky off the start line, initially protecting that 32-second advantage. Lotto Soudal making inroads earlier on, passing third place Nippo Vini Fantini with 1 lap completed. But Team Sky still in front, but a narrow advantage of just over 20 seconds to the Team Sunweb squad. And that's closed ever closer in the recent times, with Jonathan Dibben dropping out of contention. 4 riders for Team Sky and an 18-second advantage over the 5 from Team Sunweb. Now Danny Van Poppel leads him through that left-hander.
And look at that time gap now, Declan, down to 12 seconds on our time checks. So through that technical section, through the Tom Dumoulin Bike Park, looks like Team Sunweb using those criterium skills that all of their riders possess to narrow that gap down into the final lap. They know they need to now take 1 second per kilometre to get back on terms with Team Sky.
Big gain. We saw that on lap 1, again on lap 2. They make the gains early in the lap, and then Team Sky are able to respond, are able to at least steady the ship a little bit. Down another second though, so 11 seconds the advantage, and very much they'll smell blood, as you say. And it's the 5 still from Team Sunweb, hounding the 4 from Team Sky. Now it's Albert Timmer just rolling to the back of the line here. Ramon Sinkeldam. Here's the distance between them as we look at the graphic, and they can almost see each other. Well, certainly the Sunweb squad can see Team Sky ahead. What's the gap? Sitting at 12 seconds.
Well, they're almost close enough to read the serial numbers on their frames. That's how much Sunweb are closing in on Team Sky at the moment. Team Sky really need to respond now to make this gap just settle again and stop being pulled back in. But it's like they're on the end of a winch. It's being wound back.
10.9 kilometres, 10 seconds the advantage. Okay, well, a second a kilometre will do, but then you're going to need a sprint at the end of it. I tell you what, it's going to come down to something like that, isn't it? It's going to come down to a huge push. And are we going to see, as we did in Group 1, Matthias Brendle type character just do this enormous turn to try and finish off, at least halve the gap or get them a little bit closer, and then leave it up to a sprint for the line? What have they got to save as Ramon Sinkeldam looking behind at Max Walscheid, and every one of these riders is really suffering out there now.
Well, Declan, the one place that it is allowed to slipstream and all bets are off is from the final corner when they line up this last long straight. It's basically sprint rules apply, so it's not team time trial. You don't have to go the other side of the road. You can line up the team in front of you, ride straight into the slipstream and start your sprint to try and win this Hammer Chase and the Hammer Series.
And I think that was a good call, because it's absolutely impossible to ask the riders to do anything else in the final sprint to the line. But will it come down to that? At the moment, solid 10 seconds and 9.9 kilometres left. Team Sky are hanging on grimly, and this is an absolutely fabulous pursuit. Team Sunweb have that psychological advantage of having 5 riders. They know Team Sky are down to 4. They also have the psychological advantage of being able to see their adversaries. They can see them, they can almost touch them. Team Sky do not have that advantage. They have Service Canavan staying quite calm actually in the team car, and he's not getting too excited, but he is certainly encouraging his riders to step up their effort a little bit if they have anything left. They know they want to, but can they? Down to 8 seconds. The big push is coming on.
Well, the Sky carrot is dangling Service Canavan. He pulls off the road and out of the way. He doesn't want to give them any more slipstream than necessary, and also not get in the way and influence this race with a vehicle. But now that gap down 6 seconds, and now they're going to start to get a sniff of that slipstream. And Team Sunweb, but how will they play it? Try and go past to the front, or then just ease back off the throttle and start to line them up for a sprint finish?
They're going to get a sniff of the slipstream quite literally actually at this stage, because this is a big effort going in from Team Sky. Here's the big scrap behind for third, and it's pretty much just, well, at least in fairness, Cannondale, every time we've seen a Cannondale drop back have been on the opposite lane, so they at least are doing that.
Lotto NL Jumbo, they were doing the wrong thing. They've now moved back across because maybe their team director said, boys, you are on TV, please do the right thing. But Movistar are completely in the middle of everybody with 3 riders, so a real mix up at the back, but very difficult to separate the teams. But it is all about these 2 teams in front. Nobody else is going to get that close and influence the first and second place of the Hammer Series, and it's Sunweb, and they now have plateaued a little bit. They just can't get that last little bit closed at the moment. They closed very quickly from 12 to 5. Now they look to be drinking, eating a bit of gel, a little bit of extra sugar, and saving their biggest burst of energy for the finale and the finish.
Well, Max Walscheid has 8 kilometres left along with his teammates from Team Sunweb, and he has the time and space in his effort to take a gel and just consider what he's about to do. What he's about to do is rip the legs off his teammates, and I suspect rip the hearts out of Team Sky. But could it be that Team Sky have got enough in hand to hang on? The 5 seconds is the advantage. 8 kilometres left, just around about 5 miles of racing. It's a lifetime for these riders. Wayne Dool, Tao Geoghegan Hart, Danny Van Poppel and Elliot Viviani are still in action. John Dibben has given his best through the 3 days and has contributed manfully to their effort. Team Sky now with this advantage. Kemna, the relatively diminutive figure, is revving it out 52 kilometres an hour, and that is going to be very close to his maximum heart rate.
Well, 179 beats a minute. It wouldn't have been much lower than that throughout this whole 45 kilometres of the Hammer Chase. 5 seconds still the gap. Sky holding strong with just 4 riders since almost right on a lap ago, when we saw Jonathan Dibben get into strife and have to swing off and leave his team 1 man short. And of course, 4th man across the line is the one that counts. Sky can't afford for anything to go wrong, like we saw happen with Team BMC having 4 punctures no less in the last round.
Well, we wouldn't wish that on either of these teams, because this has been a great scrap, hasn't it? A great match race. 32 seconds the advantage that Team Sky carried into this final race, this Hammer Chase. The Hammer Series hangs in the balance with 7 kilometres remaining, because we're down to 5 seconds from the 32 that they started the Hammer Chase. And on the front for Team Sunweb, it's Raymond Sinkeldam. Those arms bandaged, his legs bandaged as well. He's been in the wars, but he's not been found wanting.
Well, he'll be the man with massive motivation to come back and catch Team Sky, because, of course, yesterday he scored good points in the Hammer Sprint. He then crashed, didn't finish the race, so his points didn't count. That gave Sky the lead and went off in pole position. Sinkeldam, he'll want to make it count today and make up for that misfortune of yesterday.
What instructions are coming from the team cars? What sort of motivation and encouragement can there be from the Team Sunweb and Team Sky cars? Well, Team Sky on the right, Team Sunweb on the left, on the blower on a regular basis. We hit this section where the wind is coming across,
guys,
and this crosswind section.
Keep on riding on
5 riders.
Small road. They're really close, huh? Give everything so they cannot pass you before the small road. Come on.
Starting to get tactical now.
To the right.
Servas Knaven giving his riders the instruction, try to stay in front of them until you turn right into that very small road. You'll get them stuck behind you. He's starting to think tactically and possibly starting to think maybe about telling his riders to ease off and save themselves a little bit for the sprint. Try and get their fourth man across the line first. So it's going to come down to a very tactical finish, not just a flat-out time trial, I don't think, all the way, once the catch is made.
Yeah, there may be a value in picking the right-hand side of the road as well, because if these teams end up in separate lanes, then they want to... you'd want to be on the right-hand side through the final corner, wouldn't you? And so you might be worth thinking about that in advance. 5.5 kilometres to go. It's a long, long way to go. But still, Team Sunweb are in the box seat. Well, they're not quite there. They haven't quite got in touch with Team Sky, but it's going to happen. I feel sure it's going to happen. This right-hander, well, they've managed to do what Servas Knaven wanted them to do, and they've hung on at least to control it into this narrow road.
Well, they're still in front into this narrow road and still with a 5-second gap, but I get the impression Team Sunweb are now thinking, we've got you in our sights, we're just going to ease off. They're even talking to each other back here, so I think they're just going to start to line them up and try and maybe attack them going into the last kilometre, lead out of that final hairpin, because if you can lead out of there, you really are in control. And I'd give Team Sunweb the advantage as a team of sprinters. Of course, Viviani Van Poppel, probably the fastest two overall.
You've got to get 4 to the line.
You've got to get 4 to the line. I don't think Sky have 4 sprinters where Sunweb have 4 fast men.
Yeah, we've got 4 big engines. Kemna perhaps the weakest of their 5, but he's still there and he's still able to make a contribution. Meanwhile, the big scrap for third, well, it's anyone's guess who's going to get it. Orica Scott have had command. Louis Varvec is just sitting on the back. He hasn't been able quite to stay with his teammates today. The 2 tough days of racing action. Hippovini Fantini sitting at the back of this group. Cannondale Drapac just in front of them. They had moved up into 4th position, but that could change a lot. Now let's look up front. This is the most interesting one. Team Sunweb are about to make the junction with their rivals. Team Sky have battled manfully. We're down inside 4 kilometres remaining, and the 2 teams locked in battle. What have Team Sky got left to respond? And exactly how are Team Sunweb going to play it? Are they going to try and blast past? Are they going to save something for the big push now? Are we going to have 2 teams jockeying for position all the way into that final bend? Final right-hander, remember, happens with just about 650 metres to go.
Well, it's looking like they're just going to line them up and go straight past and get into a dominant position and make Team Sky try and sprint their way back past them. Be interesting to see what happens now once the pass is made. Team Sky, if they'll slot in, if they'll stay to the side, and when will they try to repass Team Sunweb and sprint their way to the line to try and win this Hammer Series?
Well, the added confusion here is because of the crosswinds, they're spread wide across the road into an echelon formation, both squads. So in actual fact, even if they wanted to take up separate lanes, it's not an offer at the moment.
This is quite an advantage now for Sky to be in 2nd position because they can follow as close as they can. They're still getting a bit of slipstream. It's saving their legs, saving them for the sprint. It's like you don't do a turn coming into a sprint finish. You try and stay in the slipstream.
Coming, if they pass, and we stay close behind them and we give everything towards the final corner.
So they want to own that last corner. Just as you said and as you suggested, Robbie, try and just recoup a few joules of energy for this final push to the line. Team Sky have led throughout, but they've now seen Team Sunweb move ahead, and have they got the strength to stay in the wake of the Team Sunweb riders?
Well, what I saw there was a really strong acceleration out of that last corner by Team Sunweb. They knew they're in dominant position. They're at the front, and as they kicked out of that corner, they really made Team Sky make their own big acceleration, which has definitely hurt them. Was Danny Van Poppel, who's making Sky stay in contact with Sunweb. And it's now on this sort of road unavoidable that you're going to be a bit in the slipstream. The thing is, if Van Poppel and Viviani, yes, of course they have the speed to ride themselves past Sunweb, but can a guy like Geoghegan Hart follow?
Well, that is the question. It's all going to be about the 4th rider over the line. We'll be picking them out as scrapping to get back into the line is Danny Van Poppel. He's got to stay in the wake and also save a little bit for this final push line. Inside the final 2 kilometres, what a great 3 days of racing action we have had. Started off with the Hammer Climb on Friday afternoon. Remember Carlos Betancourt's heroics for Team Movistar. Great heroics too for Tao Geoghegan Hart. And into the second day of racing in the Hammer Sprint. Well, that was went the way of Trek Segafredo, but again, great consistent and regular scoring from several of the Team Sky riders. They had the early advantage in today's race on the time trial bikes, but it's Team Sunweb that were going to lead us into the final kilometre.
They will lead into the final kilometre, and the other advantage they have with 5 riders only needing the top 4 to cross the line to count, they've got one rider they can sacrifice, effectively do a lead out for the rest of his team, really put Team Sky under pressure to follow that pace. He can swing off and even be a little bit sneaky and maybe just drop back through the corner and not give Sky the best line through that last corner.
Like we've lost a rider. Yep, they've lost their rider, so they're down to 4 riders. So Team Sunweb have made the sacrifice, and that's Albert Timmer, who's done a lot of long turns lately. So now it is 4 against 4 in the final 700 metres. Sky are trying to step it up to get control into the final corner, and there's a big push, and I'm not sure who that is. Could it be Geoghegan Hart perhaps on the back that is struggling to stay in the wake? What a turn from Team Sky. They're coming up on Team Sunweb. They want to own the inside. It's Danny Van Poppel who's leading Team Sky, and they're getting control on the right hand side of the road. Team Sunweb have made the big push. They're in amongst each other. It's all about the 4th rider over the line. So watch to see who is the final rider of this group of riders that goes over the line. That means they're second.
Well, Team Sunweb, they really need to line up the Sky Riders now and get their 4th man, and that's going to be Cumner, who needs to get past Geoghegan Hart. What a sprint finish going to be in a team's time trial. Never seen this before.
Well, look at this, in the run to the line. It's all about Viviani on the front, trying to tow his teammates in his wake. The Sunweb riders are trying to stay with them, and it's all about the final rider. Look at Geoghegan Hart is struggling. He's got 3 Sunwebs crowding him around. We're watching at the back riders, because those are the significant riders. 3 Sunwebs about to break the hearts of Team Sky. Team Sky, I'm not sure they can hang on. Could it be that they get to the line? It could be. It's going to be Team Sky. Team Sky are going to win the Hammer Series. They get their 4th rider in position, and they know it, and they played it absolutely perfectly, and they have won the Hammer Series by just 1 second after 3 tough days of racing. Well, that was absolutely fabulous. Fantastic action and wonderfully played by Team Sky.
Oh, well, what a finish. They led into that final corner. They wanted to own it. They followed instructions of their team director, Carnarvon. They got in there, but Geoghegan Hart, he was looking in trouble. They had him lined up, but he pulled out something extra as now the sprint for 3rd. Lotto Soudal come through. Orica Scott, they seem to have 3 riders through, 4 now through. So it's going to be a battle. I think Lotto Soudal had their 4th rider just in front of that of Orica Scott. So it looks like Lotto Soudal will be the ones to take 3rd. Orica in 4th position. But what a sprint for the win by Team Sky. And Geoghegan Hart, the pure climber, got his sprint on and brought home the win for Team Sky.
And it's Tao Geoghegan Hart that gets the congratulations of his teammate and fellow Brit Owain Doull, because Tao Geoghegan Hart, all the heroics in the climbing on day 1, ended up on the deck as well, finished to score great points, and he needed to find a sprint there. And what a fantastic conclusion to 3 great days of racing action. The Hammer Series has delivered, hasn't it? The Hammer Chase, well, a few teething problems for the teams behind, but no doubt about the purity of that racing performance from Team Sky and indeed from Team Sunweb, who made such an effort to get back on terms in the final 5 kilometres. Led the race into those final 3 kilometres, and I think Tao Geoghegan Hart, he'll sleep well tonight, and he's earned his rest. Just 22 years of age, in the early stages of his career. It's thumbs up from the man from East London. Well, he goes back to the team, but trying to get my breath after that. That was absolutely thrilling. The issue in doubt right the way to the line, and Geoghegan Hart gives a little pat on the back to Danny Van Poppel, because it was Van Poppel's enormous turn. Let's get a look at this again, because Van Poppel just steals the inside here, and that was absolutely key, absolutely crucial. Tao Geoghegan Hart's 3rd in line here, sorry, at 4th in line of their 4 riders, and managed to just muscle his way in front of the 3 riders from Team Sunweb. That was key. Up front, Kemna got himself in a good position for Team Sunweb. But the Team Sunweb riders, Zico Waitons at the back here, Max Walscheid trying to tow his teammates up and across that fourth rider. Team Sky with the first three riders over the line, but the all-important fourth rider, and Theo Gegenhardt not lacking in heart, was he? Into the final 100 meters, and well, it was about who had the strength to prevail. Gegenhardt, he knew it, didn't he? He understood that there were Team Sunweb riders behind him, and that meant that they had taken victory in the inaugural Hammer Series. And I can tell you that 51.59 was the finishing time, so I'm pretty sure they'll have won the stage as well. Quick-Step Floors there, 52.38 from the first group of racers. Will, I suspect, be good enough for 6th or 7th position. Wait for full confirmation of that. Let's look at this again as out of the final corner. Well, Gegenhardt is not built for this. He's a climber. He's going to be a stage racer, I think, by trade. And he's trading shoulders with Max Walscheid. Well, that was great on-bike action there to get that, because well, Max Walscheid goes to the front. And he's a big, strong unit. Finds the strength. No problems going with the with Van Poppel and Owain Doull. And, of course, Viviani. So the three Sky riders on the front, Walscheid in their wake, wondering where his teammates were. Doull and Theo Gegenhardt just about holding off Kemna. Disappointment for Sinkeldam and for Zico Waitens behind, because they had given their all. But the 32 seconds they had to find to close the gap on Team Sky proved to be just too much. Team Sunweb, of course, were faster in terms of the time trial. They started pretty much 31 seconds faster than Team Sky. And look at that, punching the air from Theo Gegenhardt. And that's the moment when Owain Doull, Elia Viviani. Well,
come on, yes, come on. Come on, guys, come on, go, Theo, come on, Theo.
Stay on the wheel. Go up, Ramon.
Sky, lekker treintje op
He's dropping, yeah. They go past him. They're going to pass him.
Yes, come on. Yes.
Great concept.
What a great concept it is, and huge celebrations in the team car. Service Knaven can celebrate, so too can Elia Viviani. 11 piece. Team Sky 1 second ahead of Team Sunweb after 3 great days of action. 45 kilometers to conclude in the Hammer Chase, and it's Team Sunweb that's going to have to be satisfied with second. Orica Scott getting up for deserved third place after racing through the field from 7th. And Robbie's down, trying to find some riders to interview. And indeed, Robbie McEwen has caught up with Team Sky. A jubilant Team Sky squad celebrating victory in the inaugural Hammer Series. Let's hear what they have to say now.
I'm here with Team Sky, the winners of the inaugural Hammer Series, and Elia Viviani in that team's time trial, the Hammer Chase. In front for so long and then caught, but you stayed cool. You knew exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah, initially we start with the idea to do our team time trial, so full gas, try to win also the stage after we know the strongest team is BNC, but they have bad luck today. So, but when we lose Dibben, we understand we are only in 4 and we miss again 1 lap. So we try to manage and go steady for all the lap, and then we know on the radio Sunweb start to come up, and when they chase us, we don't know what we do, but they play a little bit the game, they rest a little bit behind us, and then we say, okay, give him in the space, and then we see for the sprint. We have 3 fast sprint and fast sprinter, and Tao do a good job to do fourth.
Well, let's talk to Tao. Tao, You were behind the 8 ball then as a non-sprinter. You did your job in the hammer climb, scored lots of points, but today you had to pull out a sprint. Have you ever done any sprint training? Have you ever practiced something like that? And how much pressure did you feel coming into that last 500 metres?
Yeah, I think for sure the lead-outs that I've been a part of this year with Elia has helped a lot. But I'm lost for words at the last kilometre or 500 metres that Van Poppel just pulled out there. I think it was unbelievable how fast he overtook them, and I was already sprinting from about 600 metres to go, so I think everyone was on the limit the last metres, and thankfully I had a bit more than those Sunweb guys, so yeah, it was a good job by the whole team, I think.
Well, after 3 days of racing like this, did you expect it to come down to the wire and be so very close at the end?
Yeah, I think with those time gaps and the length of that circuit, it's always going to be close, and I think 32 seconds planned out to be like the perfect amount for this distance, and yeah, I think it was always kind of the danger going off first because you got nothing to chase, so you're kind of on your own a bit. But yeah, once we heard they were coming at us towards the narrow section, we thought, okay, just back off, recover, and try and come back past him in the last K.
Danny Van Poppel, you had the advice from Sylvester Carnarvon to let Team Sunweb take the lead and then try and hit over them, own that last corner, and that was your job.
Yeah, I had to bring them to the last corner, and yeah, it was really close, but if I didn't do that, we didn't win. So it was yeah, big fight.
So quite often racing is riding for one individual from the team, but now you get to win as a team, everybody on the podium. How enjoyable is that?
Yeah, for sure, it's good. Yeah, really good. I mean, Team Sky won today and not anyone, so luckily the boys carried us through for us.
Congratulations to Team Sky, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of champagne sprayed on the podium when the official presentation happens. Well done again, guys. Enjoy.
Good job, Debo.
Well, John Dibben and all his teammates, great celebrations from Team Sky. What a job they've done. All 5 riders, indeed all 7, throughout the weekend of racing action. Team Sky off the line with that 32-second advantage ahead of Team Sunweb. Turned into a match race between the two squads out on the road. John Dibben, after his heroics throughout the weekend, having to drop away, leaving his team as a quartet into the final lap with 12.5 kilometres remaining. Team Sunweb trying to close down that advantage of about, what was it? Maybe 15 seconds heading into the final lap. Team Sunweb took a little bit of break, as Elia Viviani has told us, behind the Team Sky squad before Max Walscheid led them in front, and Team Sky didn't panic. They didn't give it up. They might have thought at this moment that it was ebbing away from them, but with Team Sunweb down to 4 riders into the final kilometre, with the departure of Albert Timmer, well, it was up to their big engines. Danny Van Poppel charging up the inside in what was probably the key moment in that final kilometre, trying to take control of the inside line, and Geoghegan Hart, 4th of his team, but crucially ahead of 3 Sunweb riders into that final couple of 100 metres. Geoghegan Hart hangs on, survives. Team Sky take the victory. Wow, what a thrill, what a moment for Tao Geoghegan Hart. He's quite reserved, very humble, paying tribute to his teammates, but Geoghegan Hart, you can see what it meant to him, the way he punched the air as he went across the line, and a wonderfully measured effort and great understanding too. Been rejoined in the commentary box by Robbie McEwen. Great understanding from Elia Viviani of exactly what was happening in those last few kilometres. They knew that Team Sunweb were taking a bit of a breather behind them.
The gear and brought it home for Team Sky.
Well, Viviani is riding it like he's got Geoghegan Hart in his wake, but Geoghegan Hart was struggling to stay with his teammates. But for all that, he had the strength to outlast and outlive those three riders from Team Sunweb, who'd given their all and had closed at 32-second advantage. But that was just about sprinting to the line and hoping you had what it took. Agony and disappointment for Team Sunweb after such an immense effort for Valscheid and co. Well, Van Poppel and teammates.
Just looking at the standings here, Orica Scott getting themselves up for third place across the line, and for mine that'll make them fastest team on the day, starting with a 2-minute deficit, finishing just 36 seconds behind Team Sky at the end, so making up almost a minute and a half. But if you look at a replay of this final kilometre, Danny Van Poppel on the right-hand edge of the road, they were told to get up the inside, try and own that last corner. They chose the right side, and in fact Team Sunweb left the door a little bit open. We weren't expecting an attack like that, but Van Poppel leads. But one Sunweb rider, Cumner, gets in between them, and Geoghegan Hart kicking out of the corner with everything he had.
And Valscheid goes to the right, and unfortunately his teammates, particularly Sinkeldam, goes left and is not able to follow Valscheid. And that would have been a useful lead out, and difficulty too for Zico Waitens on the back here, number 95.
Look at the shoulder of Hart into
that was a great
man
moment,
twice his
wasn't it?
size. So edges his way out. He then gets around Cumner, who starts to struggle. So Geoghegan Hart, well, he really has learned some stuff from doing those sprint lead-outs in the team with Elia Viviani.
Have you been watching Robbie McEwen?
Oh, quite possibly. Maybe you need to get a bit more head in there to really get it completely right. He started to lose the slipstream. Sunweb started to try and hit over him, but even they ride one of their own riders closed. Number 92 there, Cumner. He just can't get past Geoghegan Hart. He picks up the slipstream again, and he knows he's done enough. Just one Sunweb rider in front of him. And he knows he's got the win. Disappointment for Sunweb. Elia Viviani, V for victory for the Italian. What a great weekend. And there's the man behind the tactics, Savas Carnarvon, the team director, giving the boys a hug.
They kept their cool. They didn't panic, because their wheels could easily have come off the way the Sunweb came past, and look what it means to them.
So anyone who said that, oh, well, this doesn't mean that much, look at this. Look at the reactions of the riders, the emotions, the team directors. It's been a fantastic concept. It's really delivered on every front. Every day has had something exciting, and we couldn't have wished for a better finish than that, to see two teams going head-to-head like that at the end of what was started as a team's time trial, but was a chase and became a team sprint.
Yeah,
almost to Kieran.
We had pretty much everything in the 3 days of action. I mean, we think back to Carlos Betancourt starring on the hills on day one. And then into yesterday's sprint action, which was like a points race on the track. And then into today's time trial action, a bit more like a team pursuit of sorts, but well, with added tactical manners. And what about this? This is a different sport, slightly more sedate, more serene. I mean, I don't think it's quite as exciting as Hammer Series racing, but
still trying to make the catch.
Still trying to make the catch.
As we go to our official presentation, Team Sky, the winners of the inaugural Hammer Series.
Well, they were first into action today, and they'll be first onto the podium because Team Sky have taken victory. 6 riders in total they've used over the 3 days. Ian Boswell has contributed on the climbs on day one, and then for the final 2 days, John Dibben, Owen Doult, Geoghegan Hart, Danny Van Poppel and Elia Viviani. There are 5. Viviani has really enjoyed this, hasn't he? It's Elia Viviani that leads the team up. Owen Doult, Geoghegan Hart, John Dibben, Danny Van Poppel. What's been fascinating is the way that the teams have adapted to the situations as they've been presented to them. There's some very intelligent playing going on there.
Well, it's been an incredible tactical battle throughout the whole weekend, all 3 days of the Hammer Series. And one of the tactical masterpieces was that final couple of kilometres, engineered by Savas Carnarvon, the director of Team Sky. He's telling his team exactly what to do. Go a bit harder now, stay in front. Now surrender the lead, take a run at them and try and beat them in the sprint. It's exactly how it panned out. And he loves it when a plan comes together, and you saw his elation in the car. And there are our winners.
Well, they've given it to Tao Geoghegan Hart, and perhaps that's appropriate, isn't it? He gets to lift the trophy, and they go in the record books as the first ever winners of the Hammer Series. And it's a weighty piece of ironmongery, isn't it? That's not a frisbee. Perhaps that'll be there'll be a chain go through that, and that'll be around someone's neck in the disco later on tonight. Time for the bubbly. In actual fact, this is the first time they've got to spray the bubbly. Great consistency through the first couple of days, giving them that advantage on day 3. And the bonus seconds to go with it, and Team Sky can celebrate. Wonderful conclusion.
Can we make some noise? Jonathan Dillon, Tao Geoghegan Hart, Danny Van Poppel.
Riders in there. Olivier Vianney's round a while. Danny Van Poppel still just 23 years of age. Stage win in the Vuelta. Second year with Team Sky. Geoghegan Hart at 22 years of age is at the outset of his career. He has helped Team Sky to be the winning team in the Hammer Series for 2017. It's been a great time in Sports Zone Limburg over the last couple of days, throughout Limburg over the 3 days. And final word from you, Robbie.
It's been exciting. I've loved every second of it, and I look forward to the next race of the Hammer Series.
Well, from myself, Declan Quigley, Robbie McEwen alongside, we've had a great time. It's goodbye for now.
Cheers.